Hi, I'm going to open the meeting of the Dixon Unified School District Governing Board, and I'm going to ask for public comment on closed session. And hearing none, we are going to adjourn to closed session. Returning from closed session, and we have no announcements from closed session. So if everybody can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Roll call. Everyone is here this evening that needs to be here this evening. We're going to begin our annual organizational meeting by administering the oath of office and swearing in the new board members. And I am going to do that. So hang on one second. Let me get the language up here. Okay, I think I will go in alphabetical order. So DJ, I'm going to swear you in first.
I'm ready. But you're muted. Okay.
It said the host muted me. I feel like that's not a good sign. Okay. All right, here we go.
I apologize.
That is quite all right. All right, I'm going to read a couple lines and you're going to repeat after me. So if you'll put your hand up. I state your name, do solemnly swear.
I, DJ Bowen, do solemnly swear
That I will support and defend.
that I will support and defend
The Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California
Against all enemies.
against all enemies,
Foreign and domestic.
foreign and domestic,
And that I will bear true faith and allegiance.
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
To the Constitution of the United States.
to the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties.
And that I will you have to repeat that again.
Sure. And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties.
That I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
Upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations and welcome to the school board. With the authority granted to me by the Constitution of the State of California, I proclaim you duly appointed and installed to assume the duties as a member of the governing board of the Dixon Unified School District. So welcome.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, Lloyd, I'm going to go ahead and do you next, swearing you in. All right. I state your name, do solemnly swear.
I, Lloyd McCabe, do solemnly swear
That I will support and defend.
that I will support and defend
The Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California
Against all enemies.
against all enemies,
Foreign and domestic.
foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
To the Constitution of the United States.
to the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely
Without any mental reservation
without any mental reservations
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasions,
And that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Excellent. With the authority granted to me by the Constitution of the State of California, I proclaim you duly appointed and installed to assume the duties as a member of the governing board of the Dixon Unified School District again. So thank you, Lloyd.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And Melissa, you're the last one to swear in. You ready? I state your name, do solemnly swear.
Hold on one.
Okay.
I, Melissa Masita, do solemnly swear
That I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and that I take this obligation freely
and that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Great, congratulations. With the authority granted to me by the Constitution of the State of California, I proclaim you duly appointed and installed to assume the duties as a member of the governing board of the Dixon Unified School District. So thank you, Melissa, and welcome again.
Thank you.
All right.
Congratulations to all three of you. And it's just such a convenient, easy time to be a school board member. So thank you for truly thank you for stepping forward to serve our students and staff and greater community.
Can I make a comment?
Please do, yes.
Okay. I just saw another school board had their newly appointed people make comments, so I figured I'd take a brief second here.
Great.
Yeah, I just want to thank people that helped me with my getting elected, specifically the County Board of Supervisors, Monica Brown, my FSUDA colleague, Maria Jaluz, and another FSUSD newly elected board member who's in her own first board meeting right now, Anna Patero. Thank you to all the DTA members that supported me and both financially and in terms of advice on how to make this work. And I look forward to serving the community that elected me. And I've already taken the opportunity to meet almost every principal, either via email or in person, or tour the campus, or all the above. So hopefully we can get started on the right foot here and make some positive change for Dixon. Thank you.
Thanks, DJ. All right.
Go ahead.
So this is considered our annual organization meeting that includes the swearing in ceremony that just took place. It also is the occasion in each year in which the election of governing board officers takes place. If you're not very familiar with the structure, the governing board has a president, a vice president, and a clerk. And our process here tonight involves me starting this off. I will ask for nominations for the president position. You can, there can be more than one nomination, so we're not limited in that sense. Whoever is seconded, then the call for the vote takes place. After the president is elected, the president then does the same process for the vice president and for the clerk positions. So I will begin this process by asking for nominations for the position of president of the Dixon Unified School District Governing Board.
I nominate Catlin.
Okay.
Thanks, Lloyd.
I second.
Thank you,
Okay.
Melissa.
Are there any other nominations at this time? Nope. Okay, so if I can ask for a vote of the members of the board here, I will go with Jewel
Aye.
and Melissa
Aye.
and DJ
Aye.
and Catlin.
Aye.
All right,
You
congratulations.
didn't
And I'm,
get Lloyd. You gotta get Lloyd's
oh,
vote.
and Lloyd, I'm sorry, and Lloyd, sorry.
Aye.
Aye, all right. So congratulations, and I'm sorry, Catlin.
Thank you.
For those who don't know, the board president meets every week with yours truly here. So it's one of the larger burdens of the job. So, all right, Catlin, I'll turn it over to you to do the same for the vice president and clerk.
Fantastic. Thank you, and thank all of you for voting for me. And so now I will accept nominations for the election of the vice president.
I nominate Jewel.
Thank you, Lloyd. Is there a second?
I would like to
I'll
nominate.
second.
Sorry,
Uh,
Lloyd. Sorry, DJ. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, DJ didn't hear you. Sorry. Go
I
ahead.
said I would like to nominate Melissa for vice president.
Okay, we have two nominations. We need a second for one of them to move forward.
I'll second for Jewel.
Great. We have a nomination and a second. I'm going to do a roll call vote. Let's see. DJ,
Aye.
Lloyd,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jewel,
Aye.
and I as well. Congratulations, Jewel. Jewel, you're now vice president. Welcome to the fold. Welcome to the leadership fold. And now I would like to call for nominations and the election of the clerk.
I nominate
nominate-
Melissa. I nominate Melissa.
All right, there's a nomination. Is there a second?
Can I make a nomination for Lloyd?
You may.
I nominate Lloyd for clerk.
Okay, so we have two nominations. Is there a second? Hearing none, I will second the nomination for Melissa for clerk. All those in favor, I'm gonna do a roll call vote. DJ,
Aye.
Jewel,
Aye.
Lloyd,
Aye.
Melissa.
Aye.
Excellent. Welcome, Melissa. I'm now going to go on to the notice to the public regarding our speaking. I actually want to say a couple of things. First of all, for folks who, just everybody is refreshing, knowing our rules, unless you are a member of the governing board or speaking, please turn your camera off. And I appreciate everybody electing me this year as president. I just want to say quickly that I have two personal goals for this year. The first is to reopen Dixon schools to in-person instruction and to in-person board meetings before my term as president is over. My second goal is that I'm determined to shorten our meeting times, and that's why I'm saying this now, because part of this goes to public comment and part of this goes to staff presentations. I've spoken with Brian and asked that we work on limiting staff presentations during the meeting and provide additional backup for board members and the public as needed to do our homework and our due diligence before we get here so that our presentations can be shorter. I believe that really no good decisions happen after 10 p.m. And so I'm gonna aim to end all of our board meetings by 10 p.m. In order to do that, I've also asked that on our January agenda, we have an item that speaks to public comment. I'm going to recommend that we limit public comment to 3 minutes per person, and that each individual is only allowed to speak on one item. That's actually the, I'm sorry, one time on one item. That's actually how it is in our bylaws right now. And I'm really going to hold folks to it. So if you have additional comments after you have made your public comment, and tonight the window of opportunity is 5 minutes. Like I said, it'll be agendized for 3 minutes in January. If you have an additional comment, you will need to submit that in writing to the board or make a meeting with a board member and speak to board members. That's another way to communicate. So the lines of communication are open. We're just going to do them a little differently. So that is my notice to the public. This is the opportunity to speak on agenda items or present your written request, which is a little difficult, but so let me know if you'd like to speak on an item. And the board president will recognize you at this time.
I have a comment about something not on the agenda, but I could save it for board announcements at the end. I don't know.
Sure, why don't you do that if it's not something that we are going to vote on? We have an opportunity at the end to speak.
Got it.
That would be perfect. Thank you, DJ. Okay, so moving forward, recognition, so there's no public comment on non-agenda items that I see at this time. So I'm moving forward with the recognition of guests and presentations.
All right, we do not have any guests or presentations this evening.
All righty, correspondence. It looks like we do have some correspondence.
Yes, we do have some correspondence, and would you like to read it, Catlin, or would you like me to read it?
Why don't you go ahead and read it?
Okay, thank you. I just left it on the table, the other spot, so hang on one second.
No, I can read it. I've got it right here. Hang on.
You have it up? Okay.
Yeah, I don't have it up, but I can pull it up real quick.
This is communication we received from members of the Dixon High School football team.
Yes.
We received it last week, and they asked that it be read into the record tonight.
Okay. To Mr. Dolan, Mrs. Marquez, and the Board of Trustees, we, the members of the Dixon Rams football team, are asking for you to reconsider allowing the sports teams at Dixon High School to condition in the same format we did prior to the most recent shutdown. During the summer and fall of this year, the school set forth strict guidelines for the students and coaches to follow during these conditioning periods, and we are only asking you to allow us to resume our conditioning work under these guidelines. During these periods, we took the procedures seriously and followed them so we could have the opportunity to work out as a team and prepare ourselves for the upcoming season. We believe strongly in staying safe, but we also see the immense benefits of being able to come together to work as a team to work out. Below are some of the reasons to support our desire to return to conditioning. Number one, the district put together a list of procedures for coaches and athletes to follow, and our coaches were diligent in making sure all the athletes adhered to them. For instance, all coaches and athletes followed the mask mandate. Individuals stayed at least 6 feet apart. Coaches used approved cleaning agents to disinfect equipment, and all practices were held outdoors. Number two, to be able to perform at a high level and reduce risk of serious injury, athletes must train during the off season to prepare both mentally and physically for the sport they will be playing. Since football is such a physical sport, conditioning and training play an even larger role. Number three, while some athletes have the ability to work out at home with gym equipment or memberships to local gyms, many of our teammates do not have the economic ability to do so. By allowing the Dixon High School facilities to be used under the direction of coaches, you will be eliminating this economic disparity. Number four, recently, the Dixon High School community has experienced a loss. At the recent memorial event, the administration stressed love and encouraged us to reach out to adults in their time of need. Some of us do not have a trusted adult in our homes, and we look to coaches and mentors as guides. During these times, we need positive role models, and we need to feel like we belong to something. By denying us the ability to come together in a positive manner, you are further isolating us. Number five, during this time, the district has been seeking ways to bring students back to campus through the use of small cohorts and negotiating with the unions of the district. We know that one of the reasons many adults do not want to come back to campus is that they don't think they'll be safe by doing so. We want to prove to them that they can be safe if everyone buys in and follows the procedures in place. We feel like we did a great job in the fall with these procedures and would like the opportunity to continue to prove the district right in that you can safely bring students back to campus. We know you have tough decisions to make and you need to ensure the safety of everyone. Well, we completely respect these facts. We wanted you to see the other side of the decisions you're making. We need to come back to school. We need to return to football, the football field. We love the game, but to us, it's more than an actual sport. Our coaches have stressed we are a family and we treat each other in this way. Please support us and work with the athletic department to get us back on the fields. Respectfully, members of the Dixon High School football team. Okay, thank you all for that letter. I appreciate it, and we will certainly take that under consideration as we move forward. At this point, I'm going to entertain a motion for the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
If I could
I
just,
move
sorry, Jewel, before, I'd like to ask that we table item 10B2 for this evening, and we'll make that presentation at our next meeting.
Perfect. All right. With that change, Jewel, did you say that you wanted to make a motion on this?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. I'm going to do roll call vote. DJ,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jewel,
Aye.
Lloyd,
Aye.
and Lucas.
Aye.
Great. And I as well. Thank you all. That motion passes. And there were no items that were pulled from the consent agenda for discussion or approval, so we will move on to item number 10, stakeholder communications. Lucas, you're up.
All right. So hello, everybody. First, I would like to start off by saying that we've had numerous successful virtual events within the district that have helped bring unity and recognition to our students. For example, we have had student-run virtual rallies. Well, one, and we're working on the next one at the high school, and a very successful student recognition award ceremony at C.A. Jacobs, soon to be John Knight Middle School. Our student leaders at the high school and middle school are working hard on future events. Switching gears a little bit now, I would like to give an update on our student surveys. I worked alongside the AVID administration and fellow students to create a survey that would give us qualitative information on a specific amount of students. The survey has already been sent out prior this week. On a larger scale, I will be working closely with teachers, students, and members of the administration to create a helpful survey that will give our board precise quantitative data that will come straight from me, from the students to the board. And that will come hopefully by next board meeting.
Great.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Lucas on his report? Okay. I'm going to move on to the Citizens Oversight Committee. Hey, Ted.
Good evening, board member, superintendent, and community folks. I'm Tad Smith, chair of the Dixon's Bond Oversight Committee. And last Thursday afternoon, the CBOC and members of the school board toured the John Knight Middle School with Superintendent Dolan and construction manager Jim Babachi from School Site Solutions. The transformation of the school from a construction site at their last visit to a modern education facility has been dramatic over the past 6 months. It is really wonderful to see everything coming together. Then on December 1st, the audit firm, James Martin Company, issued a draft for the Dixon Measure Q Bond Financial and Performance Audit, covering the one-year time period ending on June 30th, 2020. This draft report was made available on their secure link to members of the school board and the CBOC at the same time per requirements. I was able to distribute the report to all members of the CBOC who did not choose to log in. So in early January, there will be an ad hoc meeting with the CBOC and school board to review the report, and the discussion will be in public forum via a Zoom meeting. Also, with the new term of the Dixon School Board starting today, I would like to remind board members that the CBOC will need a new contact person to work with me and the CBOC in dealing with organizational issues such as scheduling meetings. So please think about that when you do your committee assignments. Thank you very much and stay healthy.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tad. Okay, and for our Employee Association reports, I see Kathy Michaels has her hand up. Kathy, do you want to go ahead and start?
Thank you very much. The DTA continues its negotiations with the Dixon Unified School Board and the district office. We are working with the district office to develop and implement a revised distance learning schedule that better addresses the learning and emotional needs of our students. We are currently looking at the secondary levels, John Knight Middle School, Dixon High School, and Maine Prairie High School. We are also working with the district to solidify appropriate COVID protocols for staff and students. Furthermore, we continue to work to develop an appropriate model for a hybrid situation when that should occur. We wish our families and colleagues a safe, happy, and healthy winter break. Happy 2021 as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathy. And is there anybody from SEIU, another employee association report? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on to parent association reports. Are there any parent association reports? Okay, seeing none, we are going to move on to public comment. Persons wishing to introduce a topic within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district and not on the agenda may do so at this time. As we've said before, this is not an opportunity for engaging in conversation with board, but we'll certainly hear public comment at this time if you have it. Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Okay, Chris Dalton.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Okay, so I'd like to echo the comments of the football team. I'm currently the coach of the cross-country high school team. We need to get back out and practice. This is just further pushing the kids away. I've already noticed some issues with a lot of the kids where, you know, we're a pretty antisocial group, but now it's even more antisocial. So, you know, it's really hard on these kids. And California has actually said, hey, cross country and track and all that good stuff can work out outside. So I'm looking for a status on getting these kids back into practice immediately.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Does anybody else have public comment at this time? Okay, seeing none. Brian, do you want to address any of the comments from non-sports?
Sure, I will. Thank you for the chance, and I'll be brief. So Stephanie Marquez, principal of Dixon High, and I just had a conversation yesterday related to this, and Chris is right that the current guidance does allow for conditioning activities outside. So Stephanie is working with the athletic team at Dixon High School, administrative and athletic director, with the intent of getting conditioning back in swing in the new year. We're obviously dealing with additional levels of concern right now with regards to cases and the stay-at-home order. So I think extra mindful around the safety concerns. The members of the football team who put together their letter were correct in saying that our students did a great job in the earlier portion of the year when they were engaged in conditioning activities. And I was out there a couple times and just saw the screening process of students coming in. So coaches were doing a great job too. So I do look forward to being able to have the conditioning program back in place. We are waiting. Still, just a quick addition, you know, the CIF had things not deteriorated so much, we would actually be in the first of 2 sports seasons for this year. And that would have begun just here in the last week or so. And that has been put off. CIF will be meeting again in the early portion of January. They have expressed at this point in time, the very soonest that CIF sports could begin would be January 25th. However, that's actually viewed as a very unlikely date, again, given circumstances across the state. So we'll stay tuned. And my position is, regardless of whether or not we're able to get competition going anytime soon, we should be offering the conditioning opportunities for our kids as a chance to have some time together, have this positive outlet, and be able to have some connection with each other during this tough time.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to go back. It looks like we have one more public comment. I'm going to recognize Pinky No.
Hi, guys. Thank you for letting me speak. Sorry, I was driving and I was like, Cooper, how do I raise my hand? I just wanted to thank Mrs. Marquez for hosting her Tuesday night talks. It's been a great opportunity for parents to kind of voice their opinions and just collaborate on how we're all feeling about the distance learning. She's been very receptive to hearing some suggestions that we've been making. We all feel that, our kids need to be able to see each other and interact with each other. Right now with the AB group, it's been kind of crazy because the A kids don't get to see the B kids and vice versa. So she's been really receptive to listening to some ideas that we've had about that and just trying to get the kids to interact with each other a little bit more and in different ways. And so I do appreciate her taking that time out. We had a little bit of an emotional moment a couple of weeks ago after we, we lost one of our kids. And so it was nice to have the safe spot to be able to talk freely and comfortably with each other. So I just wanted to recognize Mrs. Marquez for that opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Pinky.
Okay.
Okay. All public comment we're going to close public comment now, and we're going to move on to our first agenda item, the first interim budget report. So Monique.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Monique Stovall, Chief Business Official. Good evening, President O'Halloran, members of the board, Superintendent Dolan. This evening, my first presentation is the first interim financial report. I will make sure that I have sharing options. Yes, and I will pull up the report. And if you can just confirm that you can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
And the one slide on the screen that just says 2021 first interim budget report. Okay, thank you for that. I'd like to just take a moment to check and make sure you're hearing and seeing what I'd like you to. I'd like to take a moment before I begin to thank the collective work of our district staff and also our consultant Park Corp. A lot of work went into this particular presentation. It's something we have been working on for quite some time, especially as we navigate this world of COVID. So this report will really let us know where we are landing as a district financially after the impact and all of the different legislation has come about for school districts. As I begin all budget meetings and budget reports, this is our annual budget cycle. We are almost halfway through our year, and we are at the first interim financial report. An overview of what I will share with you this evening is first the legal requirements. I'll explain several core messages that went into the development of this budget report. We'll have a brief overview of our first interim budget. We'll also talk about the multi-year projections, and then we'll talk about our next steps. An overview. The first interim report reflects the district's financial position as of October 31st. I like to term the first interim report more in layman's terms as this is our first quarterly report. So if you're familiar with quarterly reports, you probably hear that on the news. That's what a district's interim report is. Our governing board must certify through this report whether or not we will be able to meet our financial obligations for this year and the next 2 years. And then the Solano County Office of Education also reviews this report to make sure that they agree with our certification. Core messages. Our first core message that I want to share with you right at the beginning is the first interim budget projections indicate that we would have a qualified certification. This means that we believe that we will be able to meet our financial obligations for this year, and we may be able to meet our financial obligations for the next 2 years. As you'll see on this particular slide, as I said, this year we believe we can meet our financial obligations. However, in the next 2 years, we believe we'll meet those financial obligations only through budget stabilization adjustments. And I'll talk more about those adjustments later on in this presentation. The next key message is our key assumptions. These are the key components that drove us to how we are going to project our budget. First and foremost, this budget is based upon the California enacted budget that we received in July. It also includes board-approved changes based upon our board-approved budget stabilization plan. We are still projecting that we will have a zero COLA this year and the next 2 years. We are still projecting that we'll have cash deferrals this year and next year. And we are still including 25% of the certificate of participation payments being paid via our general fund. Next is enrollment. This budget is based on enrollment as of October. At that time, our enrollment was about 2986. Our enrollment on December 9th was 2909. What we do know is our enrollment typically declines this time of year. However, we may have a rebound, which is very good for us when we're looking at our overall financial picture and our enrollment's impact on our budget. What I want to make sure that we do note is in the table here in the graph, we are in declining enrollment, as are many districts around California. And we want to make sure that we are responding to that declining enrollment and the impact on our budget. Next, I want to talk about something that's called our SCG funding. This is our supplemental and concentration grant funding. This is the money that we receive that supports our LCAP. The SCG funding is based upon the percentage of students who are identified as foster youth, English learners, or students who qualify for the free and reduced price meal program. This SCG funding, as you see at the bottom of the page, is part of our overall LCFF funding. I bring attention to this because this year, families are not required to submit meal applications to receive a free meal. We determine whether or not families are identified as, quote, low income based upon those meal applications. But because they don't have to submit an application, the number of students who are qualifying for free or reduced price meal is declining. Therefore, the number of students who we will receive funding for is also projected to decline over the next few years and also this year. The next core message is what we are terming the budget stabilization adjustments. As a reminder, on November 5th, the board approved a budget stabilization plan. And we have included what's called budget stabilization adjustments. These are projected reductions to expenses that are necessary in order for us to meet our minimum financial obligations. The specific expenses that will be reduced will be identified as the district implements a budget stabilization plan and as the district moves on and identifies opportunities to decrease expenses over the next few years. We've included budget stabilization adjustments in our multi-year projections in this particular budget report. The final core message is pension costs. As we know, pension costs are rising and we have to be able to respond to that. I'd like to draw attention to the blue line, which is our CalPERS line. You'll see that that line is getting, semi-vertical, and we need to make sure that we plan for those increased expenses. Okay, now let's do a brief overview of the first interim budget. I'll start with our revenues. We are projecting that our revenues combined will be about $38 million. Here you'll see unrestricted, restricted, and combined. I'll just remind you that unrestricted revenues can be spent on anything. Restricted have very specific uses for that particular pot of money that we receive. Next, I'd like to talk about, our expenses. So our salaries and benefits, we're projecting that our combined expenses for our salaries and benefits will be about $29 million. Our operating costs, which includes books and supplies and anything that's not related to personnel, about $10 million. And our overall expenditures will be about $39 million this year. excuse me, our expenses are more than our revenue. So we are projecting that we will have about an $832,000 deficit. I'd like to draw attention to our transfer to our cafeteria fund. Our cafeteria fund, we had hoped that we would not have to contribute to them. But as we know, we are just not serving the same number of students as we did in the past. So the general fund will need to contribute to the cafeteria fund this year. But we're also planning to have the restricted funds to also contribute to the cafeteria fund. We will use the CARES dollars that we received. The CARES dollars are one-time funds that can be used to help support our efforts to make sure that students receive a meal during the school day. Overall, we are projecting that we would have a deficit of about 1.1 million this fiscal year. And this brings us to a reserve for economic uncertainties of 4.62%. We are required to have a minimum reserve for economic uncertainties, REU, of 3%. So we meet our financial obligations for this year. Now let's talk about our multi-year projections. In our district, we project out 4 years. And I think that that is a very wise decision. What I am showing you here is really focusing on our unrestricted fund. The reason why I'm focusing on our unrestricted fund is because, as I said earlier, this is our general use dollars. These dollars help support our entire district. Should our restricted funds be unavailable, we have to use our unrestricted funds. We project that our unrestricted revenues will continue to decline. I'd like to draw attention to the 22-23 school year. You'll see from 21-22 to 22-23, that's almost a $3 million decline. If you have been able to observe our budget presentations over the past few months, you'll remember a term called hold harmless. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, districts that are in declining enrollment especially have had to be able to take advantage of a hold harmless clause, meaning that even if their enrollment and their average daily attendance, meaning the number of students who are actually at school, is declining, their funding would not be negatively affected. That hold harmless is for this fiscal year, for the 2021 school year. It also helps us in the 21-22 school year. However, we will have to recognize the effects of our declining enrollment in 22-23. Right now, there's no provisions that protect us in that school year against the effects of the declining enrollment. Next, I want to draw your attention to our expenses. This year, our expenses in our unrestricted fund, and for the next few years, we'll be able to, our expenses are less than our revenue, which is a good thing, but we also have transfers out that we need to be able to support our cafeteria fund, and we also need to support our special education fund. Next, I'd like to draw your attention to what I talked about earlier, which is our budget stabilization adjustments. These are the adjustments that we need to make to meet our fiscal obligations. You'll see that in 21-22, we project that we need to decrease our expenses by 1.2 million. By 22-23, we need to have decreased our expenses over the preceding years by 6 million, so it's cumulative. By 23-24, we will have had to decrease our expenses by about 8 million. So over those next few years, by the time we get to 22, 23, 24, we will have had to decrease our expenses by about 8 million in order to meet our financial obligations, which is down here at the bottom of the screen, in order to meet our 3% minimum reserve for economic uncertainties. So let's talk about our next steps. So the Next budget information that we'll receive is in January. We'll receive our governor's proposed budget, and that may change our financial projections significantly based upon what the California economy is seeing and is projecting over the next few months. From January to February, we will be working on our budget stabilization plan and having discussions with our budget advisory committee and our stakeholders about how to address the reductions that we need to make in order to stabilize our budget. Then we will be back with you in March for our second interim budget report. So at this time, I'd like to take one more look at our annual budget cycle. As I shared on the last screen, we have finished our first interim and we'll be back again to give you an update on our governor's budget proposal in January. What questions do you have?
Are there board members with questions at this time?
Yes.
DJ, go ahead.
So if we're being held harmless for ADA in 2021, 2022, why is there still a slight decrease in the revenues?
So remember how I talked about that SCG funding?
Yes.
And that's yes. And so our SCG funding is going down. That's the main reason.
I've seen a similar issue in the district I work in. Because there's a new federal administration, do you think there is a chance for any increase in federal aid?
I think that that's a big question. I hope that there's a chance for federal aid. And I wish that I had a crystal ball and I wish I could say, hey, you know what, we're going to get as much funding as possible. But at this time, we put into the budget what we know now. And what we know right now is we don't have any additional federal aid coming our way.
Has the Secretary of Education been announced yet? Do we know? We don't know.
No, not announced.
Could be Dr. Jill.
Probably not, but could be, yes.
Okay, any other questions from board members?
Just a comment, the Department of Finance in California recently released a report that the revenue stream was better than expected, and that we probably won't see what happened to us in 2007 when K-12 took an $18 billion cut. That they don't know what it's going to be, but they anticipate that revenues are going to be higher than originally projected, which is good news for us, I think.
Mm-hmm. Great. Any other board questions? And I just had a comment too. I think sort of following on what Lloyd said, my understanding is that revenues are up and that all of the districts, most of the districts in California are experiencing declining enrollment as well. And so my sort of read of the crystal ball is that we're going to be held harmless an additional year. Have you heard anything like that? That's sort of what I've been hearing in circles.
I have not heard that yet.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Are there any members of the public wishing to comment on this item? Okay, this is an action item to pass our first interim budget report. So I will entertain a motion on the item.
I'm going to just highlight a couple things before
you
adopt that. Mm-hmm. So first up, I want to thank Monique and her staff, but really Monique does just the absolute vast majority of this work. So thank you. Once again, we have really reliable and clear numbers, and Monique does a super job of presenting them. Couple things. So that multi-year projection, one component of that I think merits emphasis, and we talked about declining enrollment a little bit, is built into that is a projected decline of 5% for next school year and 2.5% for each of the subsequent years. So we are projecting a continued really significant drop in enrollment. We really hope that that will not be the case. If you have taken a trip out to the southwest area, they're bordered by Pitt School and the housing development. Houses are popping up there very quickly, and they're selling very quickly as well. And so while we have construction on the south side of town as well, we are optimistic that we will see some enrollment bounce back with those new homes. At the same time, birth rate is at historic lows, and economic challenges for families remain really significant. And as you mentioned, there's declining enrollment darn near everywhere in the state. Very few areas or otherwise. So we do feel we've taken a very, very conservative approach with regards to enrollment here. And if the right things happen, we'll see more students come, and that will alleviate some of the demand on us in terms of making reductions. The other thing I want to say is the dollar figures that Monique stated in terms of reductions are absolutely staggering, mind-boggling, and they seem outrageous in scope. The figure of $1.2 million for next year, it's similar to what we've had to do in other years, but over $6 million in the subsequent year, and more the year after that. I've never seen anything like it in my 33 years of working in public education. It scares the heck out of us. It is based to such a large degree on declining revenue. Part of that is declining revenue coming from the state. Part of that is our decline in enrollment. DJ asked about assistance coming from afar. We sure hope so. I think everyone recognizes that school districts and local government and state government are going to need help. We have, at this point in time, have to obligate ourselves to making those reductions. We certainly hope that the final numbers will be nowhere even remotely near that. And we hope there'll be a bounce back with the economy and such. But I just think it's really important that we point out there are massive, massive financial issues coming for us, for all districts in California, really, that we have to keep in front of us and talk about regularly. So that's it. Two things I wanted to emphasize. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Brian. All right, we're going to, I'm going to entertain a motion on the first interim budget report. Is there a
I
motion?
move
make
that
a
we
motion.
approve. All right, and I second.
All right, Melissa and then Jewel seconds, and I'm going to take roll call vote. So DJ,
Aye.
Lloyd,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Jewel,
Aye.
and I as well, and Lucas.
Aye.
Excellent. Motion passes. And we're going to move on to the next item that Monique also has with us, which is the Budget Stabilization Plan Status Update.
Thank you. As a reminder, on November 5th, the board approved a budget stabilization plan. The goal of the plan is to help us to meet our financial obligations for the next 2 years. This is a status report on our progress on that budget stabilization plan. We have focused first on the 10% reduction to unrestricted expenses. Over the past few months, schools and departments have met with executive cabinet to review their budgets in detail. Collectively, schools and departments have been able to identify about $514,000 in expense reductions. What's important to note is about $130,000 of that are not ongoing reductions. They're reductions that we see could happen this year, but we'll have to prepare to bring that back into the budget next year. And that was reflected in the first interim report. So the net amount that we've been able to decrease thus far is about $387,000, and that's about 8%. We're at the middle of the year, and we still have a lot of work to do. And so we'll continue to work towards that 10% reduction of unrestricted expenses. What questions do you have?
Are there any board questions? Okay, seeing no board questions, I'm going to open for public comment. Is there any public comment on this informational item? Looks like there's not. Okay, so seeing no board questions, no public questions. Thank you, Monique, for that presentation. And we're going to move on to the board policy for reserve for economic uncertainties public hearing. So I'm going to open the public hearing with no gavel. And I've opened the public hearing, and let's go ahead and present on that.
Okay. This next item is, as you said, Catlin, is a public hearing for a board policy to establish a minimum reserve for economic uncertainties. As a reminder, in my previous presentation, we are required to have a 3% reserve for economic uncertainties. However, on September 21st, we had a special board meeting, and it was a board budget workshop. And the board gave direction to have a minimum of a 5% reserve for economic uncertainties. And this policy is to formalize the board's direction. Within this policy, it is proposed that we have what we will call a basic reserve, and that will be the amount that is identified to meet that 3% reserve for economic uncertainties. The funds identified above that, up into the 5%, would be identified in our reports as our unrestricted strategic reserve for economic uncertainties. And so what we plan to do is to work on building our reserve. Our ultimate goal is to someday, as a district, be able to be in line with other school districts in good financial times that typically have a reserve of 17%. We know that we are not there, and based upon the information I've been able to glean, we haven't been able to get there, at least not in the recent past, but that is our goal, to incrementally increase our reserve for economic uncertainty. And even though this particular policy sets that reserve at 5%, it also includes the fact that it is our ultimate goal to get to that 17% reserve for economic uncertainty. Questions?
Excellent. Are there board questions? Okay, seeing none, and I just want to say thank you for doing this. I know it was a request of the committee and of the board to do this, and I really appreciate us heading in this direction. And we will be approving this at our next meeting. Is that right, Brian? The board policy? Yes. Okay. So any public comment on this informational item in the public hearing? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to adjourn the public hearing, and we're back in our regular meeting. And we're going to do item number 4, local continuity and attendance plan budget overview.
Thank you. This next item is a requirement that typically goes hand in hand with our LCAP presentations in more normal years. This year, the LCAP has been, completely changed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, we are still required to provide a budget overview of the local continuity and attendance plan, as it is called this year. And what this budget overview provides is it lets the community know how we plan to spend the dollars that are specifically for our local continuity and attendance plan. You could also say how we are going to spend our SCG dollars that I mentioned in the first interim report. The details are definitely on our website. If you'd like specific details, I'd be happy to provide that at this time. Otherwise, I'm open for questions.
Great. Are there board questions or requests for further information on this item at this time? All right, seeing none, I'm going to move to public comment or public comment on this item. All right, seeing none, everybody is being unusually quiet this evening. So great. Thank you, Monique, for that presentation. There's no action required on this. And so we're going to move on to our next item, which is developer fees, annual and 5-year reports.
I believe there is action required on that, Brian, no?
There is action.
Oh, sorry.
Yes,
Oh,
there
you know what?
is.
Sorry, I had the cover sheet said there wasn't action. I'm sorry about that. Okay, I will entertain a motion on this item. Does anybody want to move this item?
Move to
So
adopt the
moved.
LCAP.
All right, Lloyd moved, Jewel seconded. DJ,
Aye.
Lloyd,
Aye.
Melissa? She's on mute. There you go.
I wouldn't come up for me to push. Aye.
Sure. And Jewel.
Aye.
And I as well. Lucas?
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Motion passes. And I'm moving on to the developer fee annual and 5-year reports.
Okay, great. Last but not least, this is an annual informational item. It identifies how we use our developer fees, what revenues we receive, and what expenses we are using them for. Developer fees are also known as our impact fees, and those are the fees that we receive when there is development, like housing development or development within residential homes in residential areas. We can only use those revenues that we receive for construction or reconstruction of our school facilities. And the purpose is to make sure that we have adequate facilities to be able to address any changes in populations due to the development in our area. Last year, we spent the majority of our money on our certificates of participations, and then we also supported our Dixon High School farm. Over the past 5 years, we have spent the majority of our money also on our certificates of participation, doing demographic studies, facilities master plans in order to identify what construction and reconstruction that we need to conduct in order to support our facilities. Questions?
I noticed there hasn't, at least not on here, it shows there hasn't been a demographic survey in like 5 years. Is that normal? Every 5 years it happens, or every time there's a big batch of construction, or what?
No, I'm not sure what our process has been for our particular district. Brian, would you be able to provide some background on that? And if
Sure.
not, I can definitely research it for you.
Yeah, that was the last kind of full-blown pull out all the stops effort, DJ. I believe it was two and a half years ago with a firm, Cooperative Strategies. We did something of a smaller scale one. We actually did not fund that out of developer fees at the time, actually. We paid that out of, I believe it was some facilities, some other facilities dollars. So for example, when we were getting ready to redraw our elementary school boundaries, we did work with Cooperative Strategies, running numbers on where students and families, where families are. We are really probably about the point of getting a whole full-blown study done again at this point in time, especially as so much development is on the verge of happening. So we can look forward to doing that. It might be actually early next fiscal year. It might actually be the best time to do it.
Yeah, that was the main reason for my questioning, was that like I moved here 2 years ago and it hasn't been done since then. And I know the entire huge neighborhood that's over there is brand new, plus the Pittsville one you're talking about. I guess I'm just also interested in why there always is a balance at the end. Is this something that's just to get used the next year, or I guess an explanation as to why there's always a balance there, developer fees?
Yes. So, developer fees, we cannot predict how much we're going to receive or when we receive it. As you see on the 5-year report, it also identifies what our plans are for use of those funds over the next few years. Based upon what we know right now and the balance that we have right now, we do plan to use all of those revenues within the next few years. However, if we continue to receive revenues, then we'll be able to identify what uses we have within our district to support our facilities.
Okay, other board questions, comments? Okay, I'm going to open for public comment. Is there any public comment on the developer fee annual and 5-year report item? Okay, seeing none, this is an informational item, so there's no vote needed, and we will move on. Thank you, Monique, for your presentations.
Thanks, Monique.
And Mr. Giramonte is up with distance learning update.
Good evening, everybody. So tonight we're going to give a distance learning mid-year update. We felt this was especially important as we look down the barrel at well, we don't know how much longer we'll be closed, and so we wanted to make sure that our community knows that we are looking at our program, reflecting on it, and making improvements to it as we go forward. So just want to, oh, I need to share my screen, don't I? Sorry, one moment. So you should be able to see my screen, yes? Thumbs up?
Yep.
Great, thank you. All right, so tonight's objective, we want to just, like I said, give the board and community a comprehensive update on progress with the distance learning program, as well as plans to improve the program moving forward. The good news is you won't be hearing from me most of the night. You're actually going to hear from primarily our site principals, but also some of our specialists as we go forward. I've asked them to be efficiently comprehensive. So we're going to move as quickly as we can while still making sure that you all have the information that you need. And of course, options for questions there at the end. As we crafted this presentation, we really had 3 critical questions. The first being what's been effective thus far in distance learning. The second one, what are the growth opportunities for distance learning? Another way of putting that is really what's not working, right? And finally, what are we going to do about those things that we would like to improve? So just a real quick reminder on where we are right now and why we're here. So first of all, the structures and processes that we put in place at the beginning of the year are aligned with SB 98, which was the law that allowed us to we saw districts all over the state to open in different models than is typical. We had some priorities. One was to ensure extended daily contact between kids and teachers, which means that every kid in Dixon Unified minimally sees, if they're an elementary kid, you see your teacher every single day for instruction. And if you're a secondary student at Dixon High School and C.A. Jacobs, John Knight, you see half your teachers every day. At Main Prairie, that's the only secondary site where they see all their teachers every day. It also allowed for smaller cohorts of students to facilitate more individualized and differentiated instruction. What I mean by that is by dividing kids up the way I just described, it allowed kids aren't, again, with the exception of Main Prairie, kids are not with their entire class at a given time, rather half their class at a given time, which we felt with the new transition to Zoom or Google Meet learning would allow for teachers and kids to sort of get accustomed to that. Another piece there that we talked about at the time when we created these schedules, we thought we were going to move into hybrid fairly quickly. That obviously hasn't happened. And so we did design the program or the structures to also allow for a quick transition to hybrid. And so tonight, I just want to go through a quick overview. Like I said, you're going to hear from our site principals and our specialists. Our principals and department heads consulted with their staff leaders that usually meant leadership teams at school sites to ensure that all voices are considered. So you're not just going to hear kind of what our principals think, but you're going to hear what our principals think after having formal conversations with their staff. And also the information shared tonight really is kind of consistent with what we're hearing from students and families and the community. So you know, kind of those checks to make sure you're not just getting one side of this. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our first presenter, who's actually our teacher on special assignment. His name is Jake Ritchell, and his focus area is on educational technology. So Jake, you're up.
Awesome, thanks, Nick. And good evening, everybody. So yeah, I'm Jake Ritchell, teacher on special assignment. I work in educational services. And what I'm going to talk about is, you know, kind of where we were as far as, you know, when school closures first happened, kind of where we've gone since and how we've helped our teachers kind of grow and develop, and then some considerations moving forward as we look to the future. So very first thing, looking back to March 2020, always kind of a crazy thing to look back to. Here's some initial data that goes through where our teachers were at as far as comfortability with teaching in a digital/remote learning environment, and also using some of the essential platforms or tools like Google Classroom or ClassDojo in order to reach their students. And you can see, early on, I'm going to kind of go fast as Nick mentioned, but early on, March 2020, if you look at just one metric as far as comfortability with our elementary teachers using Google Classroom or Classroom Dojo, this was done with a Likert scale. So strongly disagreed, disagree, neutral, agreed, and then strongly agreed as our criteria. And back in March 2020, about 37% of our elementary teachers strongly agreed or agreed that they were comfortable, say, using Classroom. And then, fast forwarding after we utilized our support capacities, PD during that time frame. We really saw a lot of growth among our teachers, and I really want to commend our teachers for the hard work that they put in during that time frame, and all the effort and time in order to reach their students. Because it was just such a challenging time period, and they really, really grew and really, really shined and really continue to shine during distance learning this school year. So these are just a couple data points to kind of look through, but I want to go fast. So Nick, would you mind just going to the next slide for me? Awesome. So what this kind of lays out is, after sort of school closures, this is a list that shows professional development that Ed Services put together to help support our teachers going into the 2020-2021 school year. So we had a combination of a whole bunch of district-led PD in advance of the school year, as well as professional development opportunities offered by Avid, as well as Ed Tech team, and they've done a really, really good job to help provide, best practices as far as pedagogy is concerned, and so forth in order to help reach students during this time frame. So this just kind of gives an overview of PD that we've delivered to our teachers, in advance and during the 2020-2021 school year. And Nick, would you mind going to the next slide for me? So kind of with that and thinking about professional development that was offered, this slide, what this shows are a whole bunch of different educational programs that Ed Services onboarded this school year in order for teachers to deliver lessons, activities to meet content and Common Core standards during distance learning. And kind of looking at this slide here, I unfortunately don't have time to really get into all the data and then all the different educational programs shown here and otherwise. But, I think something to really note is how much instruction has changed, right? The process through which our teachers are delivering instruction to their students, and then how our students are learning. And just to highlight a couple quick data points, if you look at a program that's often used to make interactive presentations like Pear Deck, right? So in the 2019-2020 school year, 137 students used that program in Dixon Unified School District. And then looking at this school year, 2,300 students, over 2,300 students use Pear Deck this school year. So it just gives us a sense really how much things have changed, right? And I think leads me to believe and realize, really, how much instruction has changed as far as content delivery by our teachers and how our students are learning as well. And I think that this trend overall is really going to continue after distance learning too. I think when we eventually find ourselves back in person in classrooms, I think that technology is going to be critical and foundational as far as how our teachers teach and how our students learn. This is going to be absolutely critical for education going forward. Nick, would you mind going to the next slide for me? And going pretty fast here, but appreciate all you folks listening in. So kind of my last slide I want to address is we took a little bit of time just to look at a few data points. What are some things that we really need to consider in the future? And as I mentioned on the previous slide, I really think that technology in large part is going to be center stage in instruction in Dixon Unified forever. And our teachers have put in so much work, hard work and effort, you know, to learn to teach in this environment. And I think that this momentum is really going to translate into future school years when we're back in person as well. And something to really consider looking at the second bullet point here is, so IT has implemented a one-to-one Chromebook take-home system. And this is just so, it's, you know, awesome that this is in place. And it's great when we're back in person that, you know, students are going to have their district issued Chromebook, take to class, you know, learn at school, go home, have access to a computer at home. Just such a great and critical program. And something to, you know, consider, especially after Monique's presentation, I think it's absolutely crucial that we have a 4-year district-wide technology replacement plan. And this is really common with a Chromebook take-home system. I've even talked to some colleagues in other districts that have my role. And you know, the first couple of years of doing take-home systems, sometimes they've had to replace it 3 years. You know, I think we should really aim, you know, for a 4-year technology replacement plan. But I think this is something that we're going to have to account for and budget for out of the general fund in years going forward. And you know, if money is put aside every year to ensure that, you know, technology come summer of 2024 can be replaced, you know, I think that's the best approach, as opposed to having to amass a whole bunch of money in 2024 to replace devices. Because ultimately, you know, our district's mission statement being to close the achievement gap by preparing all students for college career readiness in a global society, and having consistent, reliable, and updated technology is critical towards achieving that mission statement. And I really just want to emphasize in the future, it's going to be crucial that we have a 4-year district-wide technology replacement plan for students and for teachers. Just a couple other points, and I've kind of gone over my time.
You're fine,
Sorry?
You're doing fine.
All right, cool. Yeah, just a couple other things to kind of consider as far as technology instruction is regarding technology instruction and using technology to you know, meet content and Common Core standards. I think too that we should go with the trend with, you know, programs that our teachers have been using. And, you know, since teachers have put so much time and invested so much time to building activities and lessons with some of these different programs that we built capacity around and trained, like Edpuzzle, you know, Kami, Pear Deck, GoGuardian, etc., Screencastify, I think it's important that we honor all the work that our teachers have done, and we continue to you know, finance these programs going forward in the next couple years. And the very last thing I just kind of want to leave you with is, you know, possible next steps for tech instruction going forward, especially considering our district's mission statement. You know, preparing all students for college and career readiness and success in a global society. I think kind of a next step, a next leap for us to make in Dixon Unified School District is making use of Google's Applied Digital Skills. They have really, really awesome Common Core based lessons, activities for pretty much every grade level, every content area that's really tied to authentic learning experiences and, you know, experiences that students are likely to encounter, you know, post the K-12 world. And I think this is kind of a, you know, a natural launching pad into going forward. So that's pretty much what I got. Really appreciate you folks taking the time to listen, and yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Jake. And that's not all Jake has, but I did have to, because he is so passionate about this work, and there's really a lot to report. We wanted to make sure that we had time for everybody tonight. So thank you, Jake. And we'll go ahead.
Yes, I want to jump in.
Yes.
2 things, Catlin. I might suggest for board questions that maybe you open up with each of these sections. There's a lot to try to remember, and especially Jake put up a lot of quick data there. So for your consideration.
Okay.
And secondly, Jake Ritchell deserves a parade. I think, and if it's just me and he's riding in the back of my pickup, that's fine, but he deserves something bigger than that. Jake has been the undisputed leader in the growth and development of technology for our students and staff here. He deserves, he just deserves so much credit. And I know our teachers who have worked with him and been trained with him and supported by him really have a very high value on Jake and really appreciate his service and support. And I just wanted to make sure that in front of everybody here tonight, especially that the board heard how critical his role is. He was talking some nonsense about making his job obsolete last year. And the fact is that his position is going to be critical for many, many years in terms of us developing our programs. So thank you, Mr. Ritchell, for your great work. Really appreciate it.
Great, thank you, Brian. And so I'm going to go ahead and open for board comment on this particular topic. Questions, comment?
I have a comment.
Okay.
So I fully agree with Jake. As a student, I know firsthand that technology is now crucial and will definitely be crucial in the future. So I believe that we should consider the tech plans and trainings for sure moving forward.
Fantastic, great. Thank you, Lucas. Anybody else have comments or thoughts?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My question is there a committee of people who helps choose what teachers are going to be trained on? And if not, who decides?
Brian, do you want to go ahead and answer?
I'm going to leave that to
Jake?
Nick and or Jake. Yes.
Sure. So last year, we began a committee that was chaired by Mark Radicello, our IT director, and Jake, called the Technology Advisory Committee, that had stakeholders from different sites and different roles. And they really began the work of trying to roll out a technology plan. That work really became very, well, I don't want to say it got shelved, it just became accelerated very, very rapidly. We were, as Jake's data that he presented earlier, I would say Dixon Unified was not where our neighbors were a year ago. We were further behind. And so Jake, in conjunction with IT and other folks, had started the process last fall and into the winter of starting to get folks trained. And then that just happened really, really, really quickly. Beyond that, once we hit the ground running hard in the summer, it was, and I'll let Jake speak to this too, it was a lot of, what do people think is working out there? We had some data from the spring, from the first closure, about what people were interested in. Jake obviously did a lot of research and worked with our IT to make sure what we were having was good. At the same time, we have a process for if folks would like to make a recommendation for an approved app. We have a form that they can fill out, and we'll look into that. Some of these things do come with a cost for the premium versions, and so we do have to weigh that. But we've been pretty open. If folks want to try something, we want to give them that. But no, this year there has not been a formal committee around that. Honestly, with what we have right now, it feels like there's just a ton. We kind of have put the pause on trying to adopt anything lately because we don't want to overwhelm people with new stuff. And Jake, do you have anything to add there on that?
I think no, I think you pretty much covered it there, Nick. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. And are there other board questions before we move on to the next section?
Will that committee meet at some point during this school year?
So we've been talking about getting TAC back together. This has been such an overwhelming year as far as teacher time goes that we've, I don't want to, this is going to sound like I'm blaming folks. We've just been very conscientious about people's time and not overwhelming folks, because the learning curve in every other way has been so much. But yes, it's on our radar to bring TAC back together once we return to something that looks a little more normal. Which,
speaking as a teacher myself, I mean, yeah, screen time is terrible, but if you pay me, then I'll do it. Pay me for the training,
So we do compensate. Sorry, so we do have some trainings that happen. So the TAC is not professional development per se. It's a committee that gets together. But we have run a number of sessions after school, on weekends, et cetera, for these apps, and we pay people the non-instructional rate if it's outside their work hours.
Great, thank you, Nick. Any other questions from board members before we move on to the next section? Okay, Nick, take it away.
So the next section actually is going to be from our secondary assistant principal, or sorry, principals, to move through kind of the what's working in the growth areas and the 3 LCAP goal areas that you can see here around academic achievement, social emotional, behavioral support, and family and community outreach. I think for the sake of time, what I'd encourage us to do, President O'Halloran and Superintendent Dolan, is that we hear from our 3 secondary principals and then pause. Is that okay? Or we could pause after every school.
I think that makes more sense, Nick. There's some common themes here amongst them.
Yep,
Awesome.
sounds like a good idea.
All right. So Mrs. O'Connor, if you're with us, go ahead and jump on in.
Hi, everyone. Hi, I am Principal O'Connor, the proud principal of CHA, soon to be John Knight Middle School. I had an opportunity, as Nick said, to meet with my leadership team and really discuss what's working for us in distance learning and some growth, and identify some growth areas as well. And I'm just going to focus on a few of them because I know my colleagues will also touch on these during their presentations as well. In terms of academic achievement, something that's working really well is that almost 45% of CHA students are receiving a 3.0 or higher GPA. In addition to that, 7% improved their GPA by 5% from the first 6-week reporting cycle to the second 6-week reporting cycle during distance learning. On the flip side of that, in terms of growth areas, we still have a high percentage of students who are not meeting our expectations and who are falling below grade level. In terms of social, emotional, and behavioral supports, what's working for us really well is mirroring our positive behavioral system of support. So pretty much in distance learning, we try to mimic and provide the same supports that we would if students were in school. So we are constantly recognizing students for their behavior. We're constantly having weekly meetups. The Monday morning meetup is something I'm very proud of. We engage more than 100 students every Monday morning and really encourage them to begin their week, even though it's asynchronously. They join us every single Monday morning. That's working really well. In terms of social and emotional supports, we are really working on connecting with our students, checking in with our students, and that's working for us. Where we want to grow is we want to make sure that we're providing that positive behavioral or that positive support for our staff. We want to make sure that we're also providing that for our parents, because distance learning is really difficult and hard for everyone. So we want to make sure that we incorporate some of those positive things that we're doing for our students, for our staff, as well as our parents. Some things that are working really well in terms of family and community outreach, we were able to increase our participation at our ELAC meeting by almost 5 times, simply by reaching out to parents and really acknowledging the hard work that their students are doing. So as our students are reclassifying in between our ELAC meetings, we're inviting the students and their parents to come and be recognized for their reclassification. On top of that, yesterday we had an amazing recognition rally where we did not just want to acknowledge our students who were meeting a 3.0 GPA, but we wanted to acknowledge our students for their hard work and dedication to distance learning. And it was a major success. Seeing the faces of those parents alongside our students and our teachers really reminded me that we can make connections even in distance learning. And what I'd like to work on, and what our site would like to work on, is really increasing parent engagement and making sure that we are offering supports for our parents as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Connor. Now we'll welcome Ms. Ramos, principal at Manning Prairie High School.
I'm unmuted, yes? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay, thank you. So thank you, board and Superintendent Dolan, for having us in this evening. What's working for us at Main Prairie? We've got a lot of things working. I just want a big shout out to our staff. We've had 4 early grads this year. So yeah, kids are working hard. And to give you an idea, this time last year, our kids had earned about 16 credits per person if you take the total number of credits and divide it by the total number of kids. And this trimester in distance learning, we upped that to 18. So there are some good things happening out there. The other really great thing at Main Prairie is we have started our AVID program. We're starting small, we're taking some baby steps, we're focusing on focused note taking and on organization and the use of planners. All of our instructional staff, with the exception of one, have been AVID trained, attended AVID XP training over the summer, and continue to do AVID workshops this fall and into the spring. We've got some growth areas, student engagement. We've got to work on our AVID strategy is still the same. I think what you're going to see from most all of us is attendance and engagement, and we're all working in those areas. In the area of social, emotional, and behavioral support, our faculty and staff are working hard to support kids in every way possible. From our counselor to our school office coordinator, everybody is behind our kids. We did some student surveys. One of our big growth areas is the student connectedness, connecting students to each other, connecting them to the adults in their lives. And we hope to infuse a little more social emotional lessons in classes for kids. We're having our first rally tomorrow. Wish us luck. We've never been able to have our whole group together because our campus doesn't have a place to have kids all together. In terms of family and community outreach, parent liaison, our support staff, making those phone calls home has been great. We have parents calling pretty regularly, emailing, trying to keep on top of what their kids are doing. Also helping was the availability of the laptops and the MiFis through the technology department. We do know we have some growth areas with our parents in terms of tech support and getting them used to using the technology that their kids are using.
Now I'll welcome Mrs. Marquez, the principal at Dixon High School.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having us tonight. I'm Stephanie Marquez, the principal of a comprehensive high school with 1,000 teens, their families, and 100 staff members in a pandemic. So let me just walk through. There's a lot here. I'm going to summarize a bit tonight, and then I'm going to be presenting this in more detail at our Tuesday talk when we return after break. So if any board members want to attend there and get into the weeds a little bit more, that would be great. What's working at DHS in general is our people, kids, staff, parents, everybody else. But let me talk about some of the specifics. First, we are constantly reflecting and responding with regard to grading practices at Dixon High School. So we've shifted from the first closure, figuring out how to do pass, no pass, telling teachers that that had to be a certain way in their grade book, and then moving into measuring rigor this fall and adjusting to student successes and student weaknesses. So I'm really proud of our staff and always being open to a conversation about how to grade fairly and equitably under these circumstances. Another positive that I've highlighted with our model we were able to start with smaller student groups, 8 to 20 groups in a class. And that time was certainly not wasted for our teachers and students to build fluency with all of the platforms they were using. Another positive in terms of academic achievement is that our students and staff and us old people, we're developing technology skills at a rapid rate. It's like we were dumped into the pool all together. And I'm seeing last year's seniors go to college with a level of technology fluency that's different in the past. And while I love this town and we have the best kids anywhere, we needed this. So now we're one-to-one, and Jake spoke about this. I think this is the future for our kids, not only in DUSD, but they have a leg up when they go on to colleges and university and in the workforce. So I'm really happy for them in that regard. Growth areas, we're still having some real issues with engagement with high school kids and families at both, mostly because it's hard to engage. When we had our ineligibility list come out, those are our kids below a 2.0, and we're one of few high schools that actually measure that, I found out. But we have a high number of kids that are ineligible in this model, and that really upsets us. We don't like that. But where we have about, when we looked at that ineligibility list initially, over 60% of the kids that were not eligible had serious attendance issues. So we started hunting them down, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We have some huge inequities for our kids, and I know there are inequities all through a pandemic. Whereas 30% of our kids are ineligible below a 2.0, 51% of our students have a 3.0 or higher. And so we're trying to find those middle kids and pull them up. There are inequities in Wi-Fi, in experience, in support. There are inequities for those kids that need the people that I work with every day at school. Another growth area is navigating and balancing rigor for high school kids that are going to universities and the workforce, along with accessibility. So how do we maintain motivation, confidence, comfort, and support while ensuring that rigor? And I'm really, really proud of our teachers and our support staff because they're always willing to reflect and look at that balance. With regard to social emotional behavior support, I just want the board to know that our teachers made 648 documented contacts beyond their text, remind, and Google Classroom so far this fall. And our office staff, that includes our counselors, our parent liaison, our VPs, myself, Brenda Percival, Audrey Madden, 3,633 counseling contacts so far this fall. We are doing everything we can to reach our kids. You'll see the words on there, collaborate and socialize. We heard from our parent group at our Tuesday talks, and we hear from teachers. We are trying to use our classrooms as an opportunity to collaborate and socialize for kids, and we're working on different ways to do that. Growth areas for social emotional behavior support, just resources for teams. It's harder to do home visits. It's harder to do wellness, welfare checks. We need more clinicians. They are so important to these kids. And so those resources that we need to scoop up kids, we frankly need to see them. And that's the next thing, relationships. We realized how proudly dependent we were on our relationships with our kids and our families. And I know that I can speak for our entire staff that we missed that. And then the last one there that I want to focus on is really continuing to help teens conceptualize that things won't always be this way. It feels a lot to them like this is never going to end. And for them, it's a long time. Teens do a lot of things in 1 month. And we are trying to find ways all the time to remind them that this is finite. Things will change. Going on to family and community outreach, we are constantly trying to find creative ways to do this, and the principal is old and new at technology. So we have our ELAC group. They're a very, very involved group of parents. We have Tuesday talks, which, Pinky, thank you for the shout out tonight. I appreciate it. That is every Tuesday night at 6. I send an email every week and anybody can come, and I'd like to invite any board members to come also. Principal's Rampage, cute name. Audrey thought of it, not me, but that's an email that I send out every week in English and Spanish just to update families on what's going on. Our college advisor is super awesome and super active, and she holds Wednesday webinars and activities for kids with their applications every week. And our teacher and office staff outreach, oh my goodness, they're sending videos. They're out there, they call home, they do everything. Growth areas with regard to family and community outreach, really, we just need to keep looking for opportunities for input from our stakeholders, from our kids, from our families, everybody else. So I welcome any questions or come to Tuesday talks. We'll be talking about all this stuff in more detail.
Thank you, Ms. Marquez. So before we go into the elementary principals, I'll open it up for you guys.
Do any board members have questions?
So I do.
Go ahead, Lucas.
So I'm gonna talk about the emotional support side of things, of course, because that's where I can really speak about how students see everything. So it's extremely important, And I have some specific ideas that I'm going to be working with leadership and Ms. Marquez, of course, to work on engagement, emotional support, and connections. It's similar to a parent, that same parent meetup that we're doing, but I would like to run it myself on probably Mondays and just have it be like a lunch where students can come in and I can put them in breakout rooms with their friends and they can just talk to them and just be a hub of student connection. No teachers, just, well, like one teacher for like, so you can make sure everything's going well, but it'll be run by me and I can, yeah, you'll chaperone. So it's basically like a hub of people just getting together, spending time with each other like they can't already do. And I'll talk to you more about that, Ms. Marquez.
Yeah, we'll set that up. And I'm also going to be, our admin team is going to be doing lunches also when we get back, just opening up a Zoom where kids can come in and, you know, chat with us if they need anything. But yours
Perfect.
sounds more fun, Lucas.
Until
Excellent.
until the chaperones are there.
That's right.
True.
Okay, other board questions, comments?
Yeah. Can we go to the CA page? I have a question about why face-to-face instruction for 100 minutes via Zoom is considered a growth area. I was wondering if that is not enough or too much. I'm just confused.
Yes, so I met with our leadership team, and thank you for the question. I met with the leadership team, and that was one of the areas that they identified as a possible reason why some of our students are not doing well in distance learning. For our students who are already behind, the 100 face-to-face minutes just isn't enough. Typically during a school year, they get 300 during a non-pandemic school year. And although some of that time is asynchronous time, that even creates a larger gap for a student who needs support to master the standards. So pretty much the 100 minutes just isn't enough. And my staff is saying that they need more synchronous time and less asynchronous time.
As a teacher, I would pretty much agree with that, but it's a fine line between screen time burnout and and async. I understand. Your holiday event last night was amazing. My daughter was dancing to all the music. It was great. So
thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know you were there though.
I didn't interrupt at the beginning. I didn't interrupt at the beginning like Superintendent Dolan. So that's why.
Next time, please do.
Okay.
All right.
I was just clapping along with you. I was all. My question for Mary, sorry, I keep calling it Main Prairie. Sorry. I was curious how the Tuesday to Friday schedule meets the SB 98 daily requirements, because I thought you had to check in with the teacher live every day. So that was that part of the question. And then related to that is why was async Mondays listed as bad? Because those kind of go together. So I was curious what the explanation is.
Great questions. I'll start with the async Monday. Our kids and some of our parents are viewing it as the 3-day weekend. So they're not taking advantage of office hours or the work that's pushed out by the teachers. So sorry.
I was going to take the first part of the question, but go ahead, Yvette, and finish what you're saying. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Our students start school at 8:30 and they go through until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They have 6 40-minute periods with 10 minutes in between classes and a 20-minute lunch.
So you're basically meets the whole, were you talking about Mondays or are you talking about the whole regular Tuesday to Friday?
Tuesday through Friday.
Okay, so you're saying that it meets it based on the total number of minutes.
I'll jump in here. So the Mondays, we feel like we meet the piece with SB 98, and our auditors have agreed because it requires daily contact between students and peers. And so we require folks to have office hours available for students and then have enough asynchronous work to get to that minimum number of minutes. And the reason that we worked on that in collaboration with DTA through the summer is we really knew that the lift for getting this whole thing off the ground was going to require staff to have some additional time for planning and collaboration, and we wanted that to be available for them on Monday.
Our students aren't doing any of the A/B scheduling. They go each day on Tuesday through Friday.
Understood. My last question was for Ms. Marquez, who gave me an awesome tour of Dixon High School the other day. I had a question about you said navigating and balancing rigor and accessibility during a pandemic. I was just curious, who chose the rigor levels and the pacing guide adjustments? Was that sort of like done by department, done individually by teacher? Was it dictated by the district or the administration, or kind of what level was that decision made? Or was it sort of just like, teach what you can, you know, it's tough on everybody. So I was just curious how that kind of went down.
Nick, do you want me to answer that? Okay, so as a site admin team, we don't typically have to ask for that to get done. Our teachers care about each other and about our kids, and I know that sounds a little fluffy, but when you meet them, you'll know what I'm talking about. So we allow time for that, and we check in and support with that. And, you know, maybe we have to nudge here and there to keep it on the front burner when other stuff's going on, but all of our teachers are, as high school teachers, up against it when you talk about grading kids in times like these, as every district is. I mean, I'm sure everybody's hearing about LA Unified, and I don't want to beat it to death, but yeah, constantly figuring out how do we maintain that rigor but support all kids. And it's a tough road. And we've had some awesome examples of collaboration this year where our special ed department reached out to our entire staff, and our EL support teachers reached out to our entire staff. And sometimes that goes through us, and sometimes it's just sort of natural. And we have a fantastic teacher leadership team at Dixon High School, as we do in all of our schools, I'm sure. I just look at mine because I'm kind of like that.
I'll add on that we did push back the beginning of the school year and built in additional days of collaboration for our professional development, and then collaboration for them to make adjustments to pacing guides, et cetera, for the year. And then again, to go back to those Mondays, the intent there really is to give folks that extra additional time to readjust, because this is so different for everybody.
Thank you.
Great. Any other board questions? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Germonti, continue on. Thank you.
All right, so before, I believe Ms. Ferris from Anderson's up first. So the elementary teachers have combined. So each one is going to take one of the LCAP goals. And so these so even though Ms. Ferris is going to start, she's from Anderson, she's going to speak for her two other colleagues, and that will continue on with the others.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for allowing us to speak tonight, and Mr. Dole and Mr. Germonti. So as far as elementary, so this is a compilation of what's happening at each of the elementary schools and as far as what's working. So there are three things that have really come up. Having small groups of students at the elementary level has really lent itself to teachers being able to target the needs of our students and address specific instruction to those students. They really get a chance to know the ins and outs of everything that their students know and need help with. So that has been a great positive for our elementary classrooms this year. The teachers are very happy with the professional development that has been taking place this year. And you can see it across the curriculum, and you can see it in every single classroom. Teachers are using every bit of what they've learned during the summer and in the fall as well, and they want to see that continuing. Our students are truly benefiting from everything that our teachers have been able to acquire. The other thing that has been great is the materials distribution and the availability of the materials. if we can recall, in the spring when we went home, students did not have access to tangible materials in order to help them learn in the spring. That has been crucial to their education and learning during the summer and fall time that we have had, and into winter, we're already here. And having those tangible tools that students can use in order to read along with the teacher, highlight, you know, write all over the text as needed when they're doing their ELA, using whiteboards for math so that teachers can get a quick assessment on what they know. So I have to tell you that that is probably one of the most important things that we've been able to get into our students' hands, besides the computer itself. You can see that there's a list of other things that have been that are working at our school sites. The core curriculum that we've adopted has been utilized well as EL Achieve slides and language logs that have been produced for our teachers. As far as areas of growth, I think that there are really, some of the things are all kind of related with each other. So assessments have been the greatest challenge because, you know, our elementary students, especially at the primary levels, need so much support at home that when teachers are trying to assess them and get a good grasp of where they are at, we do see a lot of our students kind of turning towards the adult that's in the room for some guidance on how to complete a specific assessment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So that has been a real challenge because we have not been able to get a true understanding of where our students are academically. So that's why it's been a struggle with assessments. Asynchronous work completion has also been a challenge at our schools. It's not necessarily being completed. And so we're not getting the return during asynchronous time. And so teachers are being creative on ways that they can get students to turn that in. There has been recognition by the school for students that are completing all of their asynchronous work. But that continues to be a struggle as well. We have seen a significant drop in our attendance during this time as well, whether parents are calling in when the students are sick, or it could be, there could be a direct correlation with internet connections as well. We do have some students that live in rural Dixon that we still have not had the ability to connect consistently with our Wi-Fi connection. And that kind of draws in or goes in line with student engagement. Distance learning is difficult for our little ones, especially when it's on, they're on the whole time and not having really a change of a physical environment as we normally do in elementary school, and just keeping them on during lessons and maintaining really their well-being and their mental health to stay engaged. And I think that that's been a big challenge at the elementary level as well. And as you can see, there are other things that that we have for growth that we could really work on, but those are really the more the points that we want to highlight.
Thank you, Ms. Ferris. We'll now go into social emotional behavioral support from Ms. Helkin, principal at Tremont.
Good evening, board members and community members. I'm here to present on the social emotional behavior support. And, you know, what's really working and talking, you know, with the different leadership teams from our various sites, those positive caring relationships that have been building since day one of school, and, you know, virtual learning, right, can be tricky, but our teachers and staff have done a phenomenal job in that piece. Our office staff has, you know, gone above and beyond, and our paras in helping to build those relationships and support students and families. So that has really been key and critical. Another piece that's really working well is the social emotional videos that are being pushed out. K2, the students, they're embedded in the lessons for each week, and the students are viewing them and they're recapped by the teacher. And so that's really helping that piece. And then another one that we've been working on at the sites that, leadership really talked about and various office support staff is the attendance incentives for Monday and for the week that we've started at the various school sites, anywhere from the Monday async raffles to the yard signs, just different programs that we're starting to incentivize students to really build up that motivation in them during this pandemic and our distance learning. Areas of growth, there's always areas to improve and grow on. Is that seat time for kiddos? In that, we really need our kinders, our first graders, our special ed kiddos to, really get in front of teachers and be live with instruction, just so they can, learn the appropriate ways to interact and socialize with others in school. Yes, we're in distance learning and they're doing great via Zoom, but we know how critical it is for them to be live with teacher. Another area that's really, a piece is the motivation for kiddos. The motivation to continue to do the work, to continue to persevere and keep working through getting the assignments, doing the async work, asking for help, just really continuing that piece. So, the longer that we're in distance learning, it's, that tricky piece of how do we keep that motivation level up and not see it decline. And the last piece is in an area of, continuing to growth. In regular schooling, we have lots of eyes on kiddos, lots of check-in on kiddos. And, in distance learning, we don't have that per se, where we have maybe a school psychologist popping in the classroom or yard duty or, a para. We don't necessarily have all those eyes, visuals on kiddos to say, hey, what's going on with this student? And so, just finding a different way to make sure that we're catching students and we're able to provide and offer families in the areas to support their kiddos at home. So again, a lot of good things we have going on social emotionally, and definitely, some areas we'll continue to grow upon.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. And I want to apologize to her. When she first joined our district many years ago, her last name was Halkin, and I don't think I've done that for a long, long time. I don't know why I said that, but
It's okay. I still call myself Halkin. It's fine.
Well, I apologize. So we'll go ahead and move on to Chantel McCammon, our principal over at Gretchen Higgins, to
Good
discuss
evening.
family and community outreach.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. All right, so I am here, as Mr. Giamonti said, to present on family and community outreach. What's working well for us is all three sites are using Class Dojo school-wide and have great participation in regards to the communication that we're able to provide to parents about students, about upcoming events, news, and just the latest and greatest. We also have all been using our parent liaison office staff to support the needs of our families in order for them to support their kids at home through distance learning. Additionally, we have had our site techs available, which has been a huge asset for us, given that they're there on a constant time. So they're regularly available. You can see some other things that are listed there as well, but we've also all been doing our virtual meetings, of course, for school site council, our English learner advisory committees, student support team meetings, which is where we're identifying students that we see, be it social, emotional, behavioral, or academic needs there. We're able to meet to discuss those students and develop plans. And then, of course, also our PTO meetings or TPA meetings have also been virtual, and we have some good participation there. So those things are working well. You've heard it previously from my colleagues mention that just being able to communicate with families has definitely been a huge improvement since March. And I think that we're on to something here through distance learning, through this lovely pandemic that we have going on. Our growth areas, this one's kind of hard, but it's truth. We just want to continue to recognize that distance learning is still school, and it's just as important for us to make sure that our teachers are providing those routines and organization for students virtually. And we want to make sure that our families are able to do that. And we want to help with that. So we want you guys as parents and community members to reach out to us and communicate with us with what those are. And we also want your input. So we would love to see more of our families participating in the surveys that we have that go out from the district, or even at the site level, or even when teachers are asking questions. We want you guys to give us that feedback so that we can improve our practices. And then finally, we just want the consistent communication, not only with you guys, but from you guys as well. So that's all I have. I'm looking forward to just continuing to grow in this area. Thank you.
Great. Are there any board member questions at this point?
Yes, ma'am. I noticed that in one of the first slides, Zoom was mentioned, but I also saw that Mr. Garamonti, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. You sent an email the other day, and I got it. It was about how there's a new Google Meets features. So I'm just interested in, our teachers have the option of choosing between Google Meets or Zoom, or is it elementary, secondary breakdown, or are we paying for premium versions of both as a district, or how's that kind of working out?
So right now teachers have the option, but with the addition of Google Enterprise and how the Google Meet has been, I guess the word would be optimized, through that we are looking to do Google Meet as the version that we use. But before we do that, we know we have a lot of training to do, first of staff and then of kids and families. And then if we're finding that it's actually not what we think it will be, and we need to stick using Zoom and or Google Meet, we will do that. But there are some analytical reasons for doing that as well on the backside with the Google Enterprise Suite that we've got. There are some analytics on the back end that IT can look at, or we could look at in Ed Services to figure out what people are using and how effectively they're using it.
Thank you. In terms of students who are having trouble reaching, I know that I actually heard about this from Mr. Dolan, I think too. It's not like we can even give them a hotspot because it's so far out that it's hard to reach them. I was wondering if the district would be interested in, or maybe a board idea could be implemented about opening up on-campus spaces for students to come and use during synchronous time, whether that be like a library or a quad area outdoors, so it's, quote unquote safer. I don't know if that's something that's been considered or is being negotiated, or kind of what we thought about that.
I can touch on that one really quickly. We are having conversations with both of our labor groups about how to implement such ideas. Even while we're in our current situation, you can operate those kind of internet cafe is the way we're talking about it here, especially targeted to our families that really can't get connection, mostly because of where they're located and even cell phone signals. Also, we've had some conversation, and we'll be continuing it around the small cohorts that you can bring in, really focused on students with disabilities in need of the special education services they qualify for. So yeah, we are having the dialogue around those options.
My last, I just didn't hear any mention of TK. I just want to make sure, I don't know if there's any unique circumstances surrounding them. Teaching a 4-year-old to read over Zoom can be quite difficult. I didn't know if they were being heard in this general arena.
Actually, Ms. Ferris, do you mind just speaking to TK for a quick moment? Our TK program is housed at Anderson. We just have one classroom of it. And if you don't mind, Rayito, just talking a little bit about what's happening in TK.
So TK right now is following our kindergarten schedule as far as the amount of time that our students are interacting with the teacher. They do the same things that the teacher does has actually done an amazing job, let me tell you, as far as getting our 5-year-olds to really engage with technology. She's utilized Jamboards and has made lessons interactive with her kindergartners. She ensures that she still does the usual, singing songs, working on letter sounds. So she is really, really ensured and works hard at making sure that our kids at TK are learning everything that they were learning while they were physically present. But they are following the same schedule as our kindergarten. I will say the only difference right now is Miss Lawarka, who is our TK teacher, used to do a lot of gross motor skills as outdoor play, which obviously we're not able to do at this time. But I will tell you, one of the things that she does work really hard with is our parents and connecting with all of our TK parents, showing them how to work with their students at home, having one-on-one virtual sessions, providing materials for the parents to work with their children at home. So they are doing a great job. She I can't say enough about how much she is doing and how much those kids are gaining technology-wise and academically.
Thanks, Rita.
Okay, any other board questions? All right, Nick, carry on.
All right, so we wanted to take a moment here and touch on a couple of our key programs. First is going to be our English language development program. So we're going to welcome Trevor Foster, who's our teacher, our ELD instructional coach, and Maria Lukeen, who works out of my office as a coordinator for supplemental concentration grant dollars.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Maria Lukeen. As Mr. Giramonti mentioned, I'm the Supplemental and Concentration Grants Coordinator for Dixon Unified, and I'm thankful to have the opportunity to review what our ELD, our designated ELD program looked like prior to the pandemic. I am fairly new in Dixon Unified, and one of the things that I'm very proud of in this district is that we serve every ELD student every day in most of our grades through designated ELD. This is something that is very rare across the state. Not very many districts are able to serve all of their English learners, especially at their designated proficiency level. So our kindergartners receive, typically pre-pandemic, we're receiving 30 minutes of designated ELD per day, 5 days a week. Our students in grades 1 through 5 would receive 4 sessions of designated ELD for 45 minutes, again, at their specific proficiency level. And our secondary kiddos would have one period of ELD per day at the secondary level. Mr. Giramonti, can you advance to the next slide, please? Pulling off this level of support for our English learners requires quite a bit of support and a lot of commitment from our teams. And we have a very dedicated designated ELD team. And at the heart of that team is Ms. Tara Foster, our ELD coach, who works very closely with all of our teachers to ensure that they have the support that they need to implement designated ELD. It is a highly, it's a highly technical subject, teaching a student to become literate and to be bilingual and is very, very difficult. So she does a great job in guiding our amazing teams and supporting them wherever they need. She started doing that prior to the pandemic and continues to do it now. Something else that we do in order to support our teams, we were doing prior to the pandemic, was engaging in ELD calibration walks where teachers had the opportunity to observe one another, to calibrate their lessons. Our goal is for our teams to be calibrated, not lockstep, but language acquisition is something that we take very seriously, and we have to put a lot of work and collaboration into it. Another thing that we were doing prior to the pandemic was offering a 5-day teacher training institute when it comes to developing skills for teaching a second language. It is a lifelong learning experience. This is not something that, all of our teachers in the state of California are credentialed to teach English learners. They technically have that credential. However, we have found that most teacher credentialing programs are not sufficient. It's not a one and done type of training. Continuing to offer those 5-day teacher institutes throughout the school year really gives our teams the support that they need in order to continue to hone the skills and apply the latest techniques to teaching a second language. And now I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Foster, who will tell us a little bit more about what our ELD instruction looks like now.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. So as we've moved into our distance learning, you can see we have the grid set up very similar to the last slide. And you'll notice that our kinders and first and second are getting 4 synchronous lessons. So with a teacher per week, and they're each 30 minutes. 3-5 is currently getting 2 synchronous and 2 asynchronous lessons. We are still providing our students are receiving ELD at their grade and proficiency level, something we're very proud of. And our staff now previously was a real mix of our RTI team, who are also ELD teachers, and classroom teachers. Now, this year, we've really pushed to our RTI ELD team at elementary are the primary, or most of the teachers. At Anderson, we do have a few classroom teachers also teaching, just because we have more English learners, so we need to do that. And then I am also teaching ELD this year for kindergarten at Tremont to make sure that we can still serve our students as they deserve. If you go ahead, Mr. Giramonti. Thank you. At secondary, we have our same designated ELD teachers, and we are offering the same proficiency levels as before. The main difference would be, of course, following the secondary scheduling, that those students are receiving 2 synchronous and 2 asynchronous lessons per week. So it's just a daily class, just like the rest of their courses would be at the secondary level. You go forward. Thank you. So just to give you a little visual, so one of the positive things is, because of the ABs, we do have smaller groups in order to be able to meet our students' needs. EL Achieve, as I believe Ms. Ferris mentioned, they created slides. The EL Achieve is our curriculum provider for our designated ELD. They created slides for our elementary curriculum. They've made them previously for secondary, but they now made them for elementary at no cost to us, which we were thrilled. And it's been, using these slides has been a great support for our teachers. It's helping them streamline the lessons to fit some of the reduced minutes. And it's also been really engaging for our kids. This will absolutely be something that we will continue to use as we go back. It's also provided a lot of consistency across the school district. Along with those, EL Achieve has also created language logs for 312. We've had them previously for our secondary students, but during this pandemic time, we purchased them for 3-5 because teachers felt that having something in hand for ELD would be really beneficial to our students. The pages mirror what the students are seeing on the slide, and the reports that I've gotten back, we've just been using them not that long. The reports I'm getting back are that they feel like the students, that there's an accountability, that here I have something in my hand that is mirroring what they're seeing on the slides, and they actually have to be working in them. And so it's more like, just like their other classes. And so the other piece would be, we know asynchronous time is even more difficult for our English learners. One thing we have purchased for our students who are newer to English at, I would say, 5th grade and above, is Rosetta Stone, because it's something that they can do independently. It's high quality, and we've been thrilled to be able to provide that. Jake mentioned earlier that we're bringing in ListenWise, which is a wonderful program that we're hoping to be able to push out to our designated ELD teachers also for that async time to really practice that listening comprehension that we know that they need to be able to hear English at a high level. And it's also, the teachers are also able to differentiate it for different levels for students. And one other thing our teachers are using a lot right now is Flipgrid for that asynchronous time, and working on using breakout rooms as they can to create that accountability for student talk time. One last thing I wanted to make sure to put in is that previously we were doing the 5-day trainings for any new teacher to ELD. This year, thinking of how in the world could we possibly do that, we do have 3 teachers that needed to be trained, and we had to get very creative because the last thing in the world we wanted to do was to pull somebody from the classroom this year. So we have, with everybody being great sports about it, Martha Salazar and I are the trainers, and every Monday for 1 hour, we are doing little chunks of the training. And luckily, ELHE, can't say enough about them, they've also created some modules. So we do out of 4, so one day is now 4 Mondays, but one of those days is an independent module. So we're able to work through it and still not infringe too much on teacher time, which is one of our biggest goals. Okay, if you go forward. Yep. And Ms. Lakeen.
Thank you, Mrs. Foster. One of our biggest challenges, not only in Dixon Unified, but throughout the state of California and the nation, has been providing integrated ELD for our English learners at every level, but particularly at the secondary level. As the subjects become more and more rigorous, the core subjects become more and more rigorous, some of the reading, some of the writing, the speaking and listening becomes very difficult for our English learners to access at high academic levels. We had been in the planning stages to bring in secondary constructing meaning, which is the integrated ELD arm of the EL Achieve system. We had been in talks with our secondary teams for quite some time about bringing this in, and because we felt that the support was needed for English learners in distance learning more than ever, we were able to actually bring in the Teacher Institute and a Leadership Institute this year. I'm incredibly thankful to the 12 amazing teachers that are participating in this institute. This is, again, a 5-day institute that has as its focus providing teachers with the tools that they need to make sure that they weave explicit language instruction into content area teaching. We have engaged in 3 incredible days of learning. In addition to that, we've had our secondary leadership team also join us for an institute because teachers need support. This is not a one and done training. The Secondary Teacher Institute is something that we envision continuing for years to come, much like the way we have supported AVID and that we send new cohorts of teachers every year. We would send new cohorts of teachers to Constructing Meaning Institutes. And again, this has been an incredible resource for content area teams. And I'm really proud, and I'm just so impressed by everything that that the teachers have been able to do in their classroom to support their English learners. Next slide, please, Mr. Girmonti.
Okay, so kind of our highlights and challenges. I'm going to start first with our biggest challenge. Our ELD program really relies a lot on that oral language practice that we know our students need. So getting oral language practice without kids in front of us, that has been a challenge. Luckily, our class sizes are small, which allows in this situation to be able to have children speak more often, which we're really grateful for. But being able to have that independent time, independent students talking to one another with the teacher just monitoring. With our little guys, that's really challenging. Older students were able to use breakout rooms and teachers jumping in. But Jake's training of Flipgrid, lots of our ELD teachers have taken his training in order to be able to use Flipgrid for at least being able to use that for asynchronous time. So that's our biggest challenge of how to continue to improve upon that. And then last, I'd like to, with our biggest highlight, something we're so proud of is that we are continuing to provide ELD at our students' grade and proficiency level. It is a board policy that you have us do that, but it is very unusual, especially in this pandemic time, that we are making that commitment. It would not be possible without the incredible hard work of our entire ELD team. They have been flexible. They've given constant feedback so we can make improvements, and they have been tireless advocates for our children. And I specifically want to just call out and thank so much our elementary ELD leads, Chandra Sykes, Martha Salazar, and Lisa Hayden. They have put in countless hours to help create videos to support asynchronous time and working to brainstorm how we can better serve our students. So thank you.
Okay, questions on this area? Board member questions? Okay, hearing none, continue on.
Okay, going to welcome Kim Parrott, our special education director.
Good evening. Very proud to talk with you about what's going on in our special education department. I did have the opportunity to meet with all of my team leaders in special education at the various grade levels as we put all this together. An overview of our special education program at the elementary level as far as our resource students. Those are students that for the most part of their day are in general education and then have the resource supports for part of their day in identified areas of like reading, math, or writing to help them meet their goals. Basically, the research students are getting asynchronous and synchronous time with the paraprofessionals pushing into the classrooms, and those paraprofessionals can then work with students in breakout rooms at the teacher's direction within the classroom to help support students. The teachers and paraprofessionals are also having office and tutor time hours during asynchronous time. Speech service, OT, and counseling are also set up for students per their IEPs. Especially for our younger students, we have work materials that are being sent home as needed for students. And this helps parents in supporting and helping the students at home with their work. Our intensive learning centers or our special day classes, which are located on our Tremont site, these students spend the majority of their day within this special education classroom with mainstreaming as appropriate in appropriate academic areas. Those students have been going the entire day. Right now, they're not broken into an A and B group because many of those students, their attention span is somewhat short. So we've got them broken into like 15-minute times of small group, rotating throughout the day with frequent breaks. And that's been happening with that group the entire year, and it's been being very successful. We're utilizing the paraprofessionals assigned to those classes as well as the teachers in order to get that done. At the primary level, the teacher even has some students that she's meeting with more on a short one-on-one basis for 15 minutes for a lesson or to focus in on one skill. Work materials are sent home for those students also as needed. And again, the speech and OT and counseling are happening at set times for students. Some of the same things that the elementary principals shared earlier as far as areas of growth is making sure that our students are signing on and participating in their resource time and in their speech sessions, their OT or their counseling times. And our teachers are reaching out, to parents regularly by email, by phone, to make sure that there's, no questions or make sure there's problems or questions to make sure these students are accessing the support times that we are providing for them per their IEPs. Can I have the next slide, please? On the secondary level, the resource students, their resource time is actually an assigned class called curriculum support, and they get that a period a day for intervention. The paraprofessionals also are continuing to push into general education classrooms where they can support students, and if the teacher likes, can take them off into breakout rooms and work with them there for further support during the class time. The paraprofessionals and teachers again have those office hours or the tutor times during asynchronous hours. One thing that they did share with me is they really wish that more kids would reach out to them during that time for the tutor time and ask more questions because work turn-in, which was something that was shared by our secondary principal, is also something that they see the students struggling with and then requiring reminders to make sure they're getting their work in on time. At our intensive learning center, our special day class, I call it John Knight Middle School, still CHA, but soon John Knight. Those students, they started out being on the same AB rotation as the rest of the school. And what we soon discovered is they too needed more support from their teachers. So they actually are seeing their teacher within the intensive learning center 3 to 4 periods a day. And then the paraprofessional assigned to that class and the teacher then make sure that they help them get into their general education class or their mainstream classes at the correct times throughout the day to make sure that they are getting the appropriate instruction and support in order to get all their work done. At the Deer Valley High School, those students are with their teacher 1 to 4 periods a day, depending upon the amount of support that's outlined in their IEP. And then they're also provided the needed help in the general education classroom. Our 9th and 10th graders in that class also push into general education English classes where they are supported by their special education teacher as well as the paraprofessionals in that class. And they actually enables them to participate and get exposed to the general education literature and in the rich discussion that is happening within those classes. Some of the same areas that were outlined as areas for growth are exactly what was being shared by the special education leadership group as I spoke with them. And then we must not forget, next slide, please, our preschool. And a lot of times people forget about my preschool, but they're a mighty little group. They actually have created their own website, sylvievilleprek.com, where they have created a library of videotaped skill lessons in various areas that parents can sign on to and utilize at any time. This is also nice because this is going to also provide a library for us to continue to add to, but to use even beyond distance learning. So I encourage you, take a look. There's some really cute lessons. They are running 2 morning and 2 afternoon sessions. The way that their day rotates again is in those short little blocks. They start out with a circle time for the whole group. They have a short break. The kids come back on. They have lesson 1 and then lesson 2, again in little groups of 2 or 3 with a paraprofessional or a teacher. And then they have a closing circle time. And this, of course, is all with this, the wonderful support of the parents that are then working with their students. We have work packets of supplies for the arts and the crafts and the activities or the stories that they have read and the activity that goes with that are sent them every 2 weeks so that those students are also getting their experiences cutting, coloring, pasting, all of those really good skills that we want our kids to learn at the preschool level. Again, the speech, OT, and the other services are continued to also being provided per their IEP, and the parents have times that they then sign on with the students to see that they get those services at the preschool. Any questions?
Great. Any board questions on special ed? Okay, seeing none. Nick, back to you.
Yeah, so it's been our intent tonight to obviously highlight some of the things that are working for us, but also identify some of those growth areas. So we want to just take a quick minute here and go through kind of the next steps for us at some of our school sites. So we'll go ahead and start with Main Prairie.
Hello again. So our next steps include continuing to build on our relational capacity, continue working with Avid and taking our baby steps towards being an Avid school and not just a school with Avid. And just the ongoing telephone outreach, student support by our staff. And finally, using some of our data to reflect on our pedagogy around credits earned and grade mark analysis.
Thank you, Yvette. Dixon High School.
So really quickly, and then I'll see if you have any questions, but we need to reconsider and redesign our schedule to better meet student needs and as they change. We need to identify and address inequitable experiences for students and families. We need to continue to work, continue working to foster relationships and communication with all of our stakeholders, and continue working to support the socio-emotional needs of our students. And we need to support all students in preparing for post-secondary plans, especially our seniors. That doesn't go away, and we're trying to support those kiddos.
Mr. Dolan, did you want to touch on, is now be the appropriate time to touch on that first bullet that Ms. Michaels alluded to earlier as well?
I'll do that after everybody's
Okay.
done. Thanks, Nick.
Perfect. And we'll jump to elementary here. So Ms. Ferris, I think, I don't know how you guys organize yourself here. So Ms. Ferris, you go first.
I'm fine. I can go over it since.
Sure.
So for academic achievement, we just know that we need to continue to provide the flexibility with scheduling so that we can provide that differentiation. As we heard from both Mrs. and Mrs. Lukine, we need to make sure that we're looking at our schedules for ELD so that we can continue to support our English learners and have conversations already going in regards to that to begin when we come back in January. We're working also with our math coach, Scott Immel, to provide videos for families in regards to mathematical practices. In the area of social, emotional, and behavioral support, we're just going to continue working with people services and seeing an increase, hopefully, or maybe not hopefully, with mental health referrals, and not only from our staff, but also reminding parents that they also have the ability to fill out the mental health referral online. And with family and community outreach, we want to continue our use of Class Dojo, Facebook, our school newsletters, providing tech training, since we know that's something that our families need in order to support their students at home, continuing to see an increase in participation for our virtual meetings for IEPs, school site council, ELAC meetings, student support teams, and PTO. And we want to see, again, that increase for parent involvement via surveys, that participation from the previous bullet, and just overall communication. And lastly, just continuing to implement and recognize our students, be it for academic achievements or any other areas that we can assist them with their time during distance learning.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay.
My turn, Mr. G. All right. So I want to thank all of our staff for the great amount of work that they put into preparing for tonight. This includes the staff at schools, leadership team members, and other support staff who provided input for the principals to consider. And we met principals and cabinet members together several times in preparation for tonight. I can tell you that this endeavor was taken really, really seriously to consider, what's working, what's not, and what do we focus on as next steps. I think, over the last 2-3 weeks, the realization that we are going to continue in distance learning for what really looks like an extended period of time. I think it kind of hit all of us over the head. We did have some data came out of the secondary schools. Stephanie and Camila both made reference to students below the 2.0. Yvette had some concerns there. While credit earning was up, D's and F's were there were more D's and F's, even though more credits were earned. And we took this really seriously, and we hope that while we have provided some information around things that are working, we also really want to make sure that we leave the impression tonight that we have really carefully considered what we're doing now and what the impact of what we're doing now is, and that we have both identified and are in the process of addressing areas for concern. And so again, I appreciate staff's honest look at what we've got going. We do believe right now that our efforts in distance learning are finding more success in the elementary level than they are in the secondary level. And so I want to talk for just a minute or two about what's next in the secondary level. And Kathy Michaels mentioned it in Employee Association report for DTA. And what I would describe is this: in the midst of our negotiations with DTA over the last couple of weeks, we really realized that our highest priority area right now is addressing the levels of engagement and success for our high school students. And so while we were continuing to work really focused on reopening plans, we really put this in front of those reopening plans as a higher priority. And so what we're working on at this time is really the development and implementation of a very different structure for our secondary program. We have found that the asynchronous time is not really effective as a means for students to learn, that students are struggling more significantly in that time, that the 100 minutes per week that students have in FaceTime with their teachers is inadequate, and that we believe kids would have more success with more direct instruction. And so what we're working on is a structure that, other than Mondays, really moves away from async time to an all synchronous model. And and there are advantages and disadvantages to this that we'll talk about in a future time. But if somebody were to say after this presentation tonight, all right, so what are you doing about it? Well, at the secondary level, where we believe our model is most challenging, we're actively working to redesign the model. And that's a huge thing to do mid-year. We really appreciate the interest of staff members at both CA and Dixon High who have brought this to the leadership at the sites, who are asking about a redesign so that they can see their students more and support their students more. And honestly, there's some student input also about the A's want to see the B's and the B's want to see the A's. And so there's some efforts here that will address a bunch of needs. So in short, please watch right in the early part of the new year at the secondary level for information about a restructure that really would probably kick off at the semester time. So that about that third, fourth week of January. So thank you.
Great. Okay. Nick, anything more in the presentation? Is that a wrap?
That's a wrap.
Just to be sure. I mean, there might be another person.
It was long, and I know it was long, and I really appreciate everyone sticking it out. We really felt like we wanted to move efficiently. We could have talked longer, I promise, but we wanted to make sure we were comprehensive for folks.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to open it one more time for board questions, and then I'm going to move to public comments. So are there any more board questions on any of the information presented this evening on this topic?
I have a comment.
Okay.
So for the rescheduling for the high school, I feel like we should take into account the transition between when we do actually go back into school, so that we don't have to switch the schedules 3 different times. We only have to switch them twice.
Sure.
Because I know we would have had to switch the schedules again to go back into the hybrid. So we should keep that in mind.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you, Lucas. Okay. Any other board questions? DJ, go ahead.
It's my understanding that technically the schedule isn't necessarily bargainable. It's just like obviously you should have teacher input and things like that, but it's just like a thing that needs to be conferred about. So I guess I'm just I'm asking if that's true, if my understanding of that is true, as long as it's within the the duty day and things like that.
We have treated all of our schedule development here as negotiable with our folks. It constitutes some change in working conditions for sure. And probably more than anything, going through the formal process, I think we believe lends credibility, in the end that we know and the board has confidence in the administrative team that we've done our full due diligence. And for the members of the associations, that their representatives have been at the table and gone through, all the elements of this. So what I will say is it takes more time to do it the way that we're doing it, right? But I think in the end, it creates a better situation with credibility and buy-in.
Great. Okay, any other board questions? All right, I'm going to go ahead and open for public comment. Holly Purcell.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to comment that I agree with what Ms. O'Connor said, that the students definitely need more time with teachers. I'm happy to see that this is kind of ongoing and everyone thinks the same thing. I think I heard Mr. Bowen say that it's a fine line with screen time burnout, but what we need to keep in mind is the students are still on the screen during those minutes. It's just that they're on the screen alone. They're not on the screen with the teacher. And so I think merging the A and B is definitely the way to go and what we need to think about for our kids. Our kids have navigated the system. Teachers have mastered Zooms and technology at this point. And I would just hope that we can really do this in a timely manner. It seems that a lot of decisions we've made are, weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And every one of those weeks are more minutes our kids are missing with their teachers and getting kids further behind that aren't already, connecting. So I would hope that we can do this, quickly and get as, when we start school in January, kind of be on board and do that instead of, continuing on more meetings and more meetings going over the same things. I do also want to send a shout out to CAJ for their award ceremony. I think it was magnificent. I think it was a really upbeat night for all of the kids. It put everyone in a really good, mood and kind of gave the kids some recognition for things that have been going on. And I think I would like to see that at all the schools. I love Luke's idea of getting kids together at lunchtime. I think that would probably work better than getting together with admin, only because kids want to connect with other kids. I mean, kids during a lunchtime saying, "Oh, I want to talk to my vice principal," probably isn't what the kids want to do. I love Miss Marquez's Tuesday talks. I've been at every one of them. I think I encourage all students and parents, anybody who wants to come and has a concern, to be there, because she's really open to listening and throwing out ideas and tossing things around. And just thank everyone for all their hard work and enjoy your break.
Great. Thank you, Holly. And Pinky is our next speaker.
Hi again. So kind of to piggyback on Holly's comments about the screen time, even though it's an asynchronous day, Bella, who's a junior, and she is in some of the AP classes and honors courses, she's on that Chromebook almost all of Monday. So it's not that she's getting any less time. She's on the Chromebook and she's also on her phone FaceTiming with her friends to try to collaborate and coordinate their work, because they're kind of having to teach themselves with some certain things, or just it's kind of like office hours for college. I feel like you kind of do things on your own, and because they don't have as much time with their teachers. So I agree that if we kind of give the kids more opportunity to interact with their teachers, I think that would be definitely beneficial for them. I want to second the C.A. Jacobs recognition ceremony last night. That was awesome. It was just so upbeat, and having Mr. Russo have the band kids perform as well. That was really cool to see. And just to see the kids' names, so they have a little bit of recognition. We've talked about that at the Tuesday talks with Mrs. Marquez, how even the high school kids, they just want to hear that they're doing a good job, and it's kind of nice to get that recognition for them. And just again, to talk about the AB thing, like Mr. Dolan was saying again, Bella thankfully has a lot of friends from LE to Z, but she wants to see her friends from A to LA. And it's hard for them to connect otherwise if they are doing, they have a hard course load right now and they're doing work almost all day. So, which is what I want her to be doing. I don't want her just to be sitting around idly doing nothing, but she doesn't get to see those same kids that she used to see on a regular basis in her class. So Thank you to the teachers for doing, I'm a kindergarten teacher as well, DJ. So I've been on the Zoom thing since March as well. And it is a lot of screen time, but I think for the big kids, they kind of need that a little bit right now. Because like we said, they are on the screen without their teachers on the asynchronous days. So they are on screen almost the whole time, but it would be nice to see their teachers too on those days. Thank you.
Thank you, Pinky. Okay, Kathleen Burrows is our next speaker.
Thank you. Good evening. Before I get into my main remarks, I want to echo what Pinky and what Holly said. I, as an 8th grade language arts teacher and an Avid 7 teacher, I'm clamoring to see my students more via Zoom. So I'd like to advocate for that. But I also have some other things I'd like to advocate for tonight regarding distance learning. Because distance learning is challenging for our students and our teachers alike, I'd like to reiterate requests that other teachers and I have made at previous school board meetings in order to increase student engagement and mitigate some of the issues surrounding distance learning. I know that we're under an extremely tight deadline to use our CARES Act funds, but I'm imploring our school board and district administration to support teachers by paying for supplementary technology. I have not been able to use GoGuardian to support my students' engagement because I don't have a second monitor. I have no idea why some of my students are inactive on their Google assignments during Zoom, and I'd like to be able to use GoGuardian on a second monitor in order to check in with them while also running Zoom on my primary screen. Additionally, I'm once again asking that teachers across the district receive access to a communication system that doesn't require parents and guardians to opt in. Mr. Dolan, I believe you mentioned earlier in the fall at a school board meeting that you were going to earnestly look into repurchasing the license for Aries Communication, as that platform allows teachers to contact multiple parents at once via bilingual voicemails, emails, and texts. When the time allows during this meeting, could you please provide an update on this purchase? And finally, and most importantly, I want to advocate for using CARES Act funds for our students. A large swath of our students don't have reliable internet access, and that problem has seemingly gotten worse. So many of our students will be knocked out of Zoom and in some cases, unable to rejoin for the rest of class. Moreover, many of my students have informed me that due to their limited internet capacity, they cannot simultaneously use Zoom and access assignments on Google Classroom. Otherwise, their internet access will falter. I'm imploring our district to exhaust the rest of its CARES Act funds to pay for more hotspots for our students. I know this was a focal point for our district earlier in the semester, but I cannot recall the last time I received an update in my email on how many more students had received hotspots. I understand that distance learning is not easy on anyone, but I'm hoping that the district can help ease some of its challenges by honoring my requests for our students and our teachers. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Kathleen. Jody Stuvey.
Hi, I just wanted to chime in and share how impressed I've been with the preschool program. My 4-year-old is a student at the preschool and the teachers have been wonderful engaging him. He can count to 20, he's reading words. They are doing such a wonderful job. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jody. It looks like I have Mr. Forrest listed next.
Hello, everybody. I'm a history teacher at C.A. Jacobs. I just kind of want to broken record what everyone's been saying. A new schedule would be awesome. It's tough to do those one-on-one check-ins. I was able to do that today, but it really takes instructional time out. So it takes me 30 minutes to really check in with about 15 students. And I really think that social emotional check-in is really going to be the most important thing. Today was a work day. You know, they had all period to just work on things, and a lot of them just expressed a lot of stress with overwhelming amount of assignments and just feeling a little bit lost and confused. So being able to really see them more often, and I know it's a broken record. You've already mentioned that that's something that's on the table, but I do want to reiterate that, and just another shout out again to the awards ceremony. Just an awesome night, and it just went so perfectly, quickly, and at no point was I ever bored. I thought I might even look away for a second, and it was just awesome to see all those students on Zoom, students volunteering to sing in front of 200 students. I mean, I had to present the awards for my social studies, and I was like getting a little nervous right before I was doing that. I'm like, I'm not even sitting here singing. So I thought that was really impressive. So more student recognition activities like that would be awesome. And, you know, I encourage you, Mr. Dolan, I'd love to see you in my class saying hi to my students, you know, take a couple minute break to really check in to see how we're doing. So I encourage even Mr. Garamondi, I'd love to see you, or even any of the school board members. If you ever want to join any of our classes, I highly encourage you to see how we're doing and see kind of some of the struggles we have, but, you know, some of the successes that we have. This may be a little bit lost on some people, but a couple of my students have said my class is like a Twitch stream, like, you know, a streamer, somebody's playing video games and the students are there. So it's great to see, and I'd love to see everyone joining our classes to see how everything's going. That's kind of all. It's a little bit of a ramble, but thank you all for listening. Hope you all have a good night.
Great. Thank you so much. Betsy, you're next.
Thank you. I'll start my video. I wanted to just follow up on some things that were spoken about earlier. I agree that Jake Ritchell has done a fantastic job of training everyone. I also want to let the board members know what a great job, especially our elementary teachers, are doing using technology. It's very impressive. I know that in the beginning, some people might have thought that some of our more experienced teachers would be the last ones to integrate technology into their classrooms. And I have found that to be entirely not the case. It's very impressive, the things that people are doing with the technology. Especially in special ed, I was very impressed with that. One thing that I wanted to point out to everyone, board members and parents included, I wanted everybody to notice what a heavy strain the district is putting on itself to take care of our kids, and what a huge responsibility our district is taking on. So many of these things that people have brought up, in my opinion, are not entirely the responsibility of the district. It is our job as parents to ensure that our children are engaged. It is our job as parents to also help our children know that this is not forever. This is something that we can work on. It will make us stronger. This in and of itself is a learning experience. And I know that requests have been made for more technology and things like that. And while those are all good requests and meant in a good spirit, I think that we have to acknowledge what we can effectively, or what we could actually make a difference in. And so I really appreciate all of our administrators doing their best to say what is working and pointing out those things. And I would agree that more energy should be put into those things and not necessarily things that unfortunately we can't control. For example, high school students can get exercise without the school helping them do that, just as my elementary children are able to get exercise and be physically conditioned without having training at school. So I'd like to say thank you, and I'm sorry I took so long. But again, very good job with use of technology.
Great, thank you, Betsy. It doesn't look like we have any other public comment hands raised, so usually at this point, Mr. Dolan, we go over any questions that anybody came up with. I know Kathleen had a couple of questions regarding paying for supplemental technology and the use of the CARES Act funds for students for hotspots.
So yeah, and also about the communication means. I'll have to check on that one, Kathleen, and we'll report back to you. We have continued to distribute hotspots. I don't know that it's entirely on a daily basis, but there is a regular stream of traffic coming through the district office. Some people, some new students getting computers, some students having a broken or malfunctioning machine cords have fallen apart, various things. So we continue to be able to fund those things that we have identified. I know we have Wi-Fi's in stock down in the technology office. I think our largest issue, two large issues. One is connecting our families who need continued support to us. We've had some dialogue around the fact that our teachers are the people who best know who's having difficulties, and really coordinating the teachers with our site admin to be able to access and provide the resources. And then we continue to have a problem that in some parts of the community, you just can't get an adequate cell signal to power one of the MiFis. We hear this especially out in the rural areas, but not exclusively. We continue to explore some options there. And I think DJ asked a question earlier about what we're calling the internet cafes or other in-person opportunities for those with connection issues. We're going to continue to explore those. I think that the stay-at-home order and just the devastating conditions out there right now make everyone anxious about beginning that kind of program. And you're balancing that against the fact that some students, and typically students perhaps with greater needs, are having a hard time getting connected. So it is a topic of honestly daily conversation around here. But for staff who know they're having families having problems with connecting, I really urge them to inform their administration, principal, assistant principal, and that'll help expedite trying to get them support.
Brian, can I add just a couple of things to that? Sorry.
Yes, absolutely.
Just looking at the current list, we have 183 hotspots that are checked out. In the past week, it's been about 9. So they keep coming in. The easiest thing to do if you are thinking a student is having a problem is send us a tech support ticket.
Great.
We'll reach right out. They can come on in and get the hotspot. But as Brian said, there are areas in Dixon where our T-Mobile/Sprint hotspot does not get a very good reception or speed. But right now we have, I think, about 280 hotspots in our whole group. Obviously, we have about 100 left to go here. So if people need them, have the teachers or the administrators send us a tech support ticket. Sorry.
And actually, Mark, while you're on, I have one more question about that. You and I had a conversation several months ago, and then I've had a few more follow-up phone conversations about the program that Tom Torlikson is the nonprofit that he's working for now, and regarding the connectivity that way. And I know I've said to him, look, we don't have all the same businesses that you have in terms of who provides, right? Same providers. Is there any way to establish a connection with that program?
We certainly can. I did, if I remember correctly, back in March, I think you sent me an email and I actually put us on the list for those free hotspots from the state and never got anywhere. I think it went to the county, then to the state, but we can certainly reach out. If what they're offering is a T-Mobile/Sprint solution, then we're in the same boat. If they're offering an AT&T or Verizon, then it may reach a few of our customers that are having problems in areas.
Yeah, my understanding is it was a different program that had to do with not even so much the hotspots, but some other connectivity issues and discounted rates and that sort of thing.
I agree, and Comcast and AT&T both have UVerse and their Xfinity for discounted. Unfortunately, we do not have that with Wave yet. Wave is still working on their free or $10 a month internet piece, and they have not rolled that out.
Okay, I'd appreciate if you could just circle back with him and make sure we've covered all that. He's pretty insistent that he thinks he can help us, and I just keep saying I'm sure someone will, we'll look into this. So if there's a way to get more access.
You bet.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And again, all those hotspots are CARES funded. We have purchased in the neighborhood of 3,000 Chromebooks in these last 9 months. All of those are CARES funded. So we are using those dollars, directly in support of students there, but fully realize that connectivity for some families remains a problem.
Great. Okay. Any other, I think we covered everything. I think there were lots of really great comments and insights, and I appreciate all that. I think we've covered all of the questions though.
Yep, agreed.
At this point. So this item is listed for action, but there isn't really anything for us to take action.
No, yeah, I placed that there in case we were at a place perhaps with the restructuring plan or something.
Got it.
There would be a call for approval. So no, just
Perfect. Okay.
leave it there.
So we'll just move on, and then we're skipping item 2. So we're going to move on to item 3, the adoption of the STEM Scopes Middle School Science Textbook.
Yep, and Mark, if you could let me share a screen, please. And this presentation is only 73 slides.
Thank you.
Just kidding.
Heidi won't do that to us. Heidi will
What's
not do 73 slides to us.
I'm not
should be
doing
okay.
73 slides. So before I get started here, I want to welcome a couple people here. You've already met Camila O'Connor, or Miss O'Connor, our middle school principal at JKMS. And also want to welcome Heidi Roberson, who's the department chair over there to join in this presentation. So hello, Heidi. And I also saw a couple of your colleagues lurking in the Zoom tiles if they want to chime in at some point as well.
Yeah.
So present tonight for consideration and action, a middle school science adoption. So we'll move quickly through these slides once I can. Am I sharing yet? Are you guys seeing it?
We are.
Yes, good. Okay. I don't know what's happening. There we go. Okay, so first off, why a textbook now? So just want to give a quick timeline here. So Next Generation Science standards were, an implementation plan was put in place by the State Board of Education in 2014. The science framework was then published in 2016. And then finally, the instructional materials were adopted in 2018. And then throughout that in Dixon Unified in lots of places, we were participating in a lot of professional development about what the Next Generation Science standards really meant as far as a shift in instructional practices and obviously the content standards. So how do we go through this process? Really want to make sure that we emphasize the process before we get to Heidi, sort of talking about the what here, what we're recommending. So, in addition to all the professional development that was happening prior to, we began this process in earnest in the 2018-19 school year, began researching programs. That started actually with a field trip with some of our teachers and some district office staff down to Solano County Office of Ed for a publisher's fair. And then our teachers, in partnership with district staff in the Sacramento Area Science Project, or SASP, which is a group that we've worked with sort of throughout the NGSS transition, they narrowed the pilot down to 2 choices. And that really was our teachers having the primary voice in that. And those 2 choices for a pilot were discovery education and STEM scopes. Remember STEM scopes, you're gonna hear more about it. And so fall of 2019, last year, we did a discovery pilot. And then in the spring and fall of 2020, we did a STEM scopes pilot. The intent was actually to come to you at the end of last year with a recommendation for our pilot, but because we really didn't feel like we were able to make a recommendation based on kind of the short run we had up to the closure. So for each pilot, what we did is we had publishers come in, provide professional development on the use of the program for our teachers. Then we had full access to the programs for our teachers and students. And then towards the end of each pilot, we had staff engage in a process to select, first staff engaged in a process to select a rubric, which is the EQUIP rubric. And if you have questions about that, I'll actually let Heidi talk about that. She knows a lot more about it than I do. But it was a very rigorous rubric, I will say that. And then at the end of each pilot, SAFs came in and led a kind of a third-party analysis of the program with our teachers using the rubric. So we wanted an outside group to come in and work with our teachers there just to make sure that we were doing this and giving each pilot a fair shake. And then we had a public viewing last week for anybody who had any questions or comments about our what were decided. So what are we recommending? So I'm going to let Heidi take it over now.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm going to try to go fast because I know everybody's tired, but I have a little that I want to go through because so STEM Scopes is the name of the curriculum that we're seeking approval for, and they offer NGSS, which is the Next Generation Science Standards aligned curriculum, and they're currently like the leaders in STEM education. They're everywhere. They host all of the CSTA conferences, and a lot of other districts are using them. They provide both digital supplemental materials and then lots of hands-on exploration kits. And so to figure out what we wanted to do, we used a rubric called Equip, which we chose this one because it was very, very detailed. We spent a lot of time, we spent hours analyzing the different things and going through it and trying to figure out what was the best for us and for our students. And so when we looked at this, STEM Scopes received an overall extensive rating on almost every single category. There was only 2 out of, I think, 20 categories that it received adequate, which is right below extensive, but every other category it received extensive. And when we did discovery earlier in the fall, I don't even think even one of them barely received adequate. So it was very, very, very different, even though we used the exact same grading rubric. So STEM Scopes does a really good job at introducing phenomena that are relevant and representative of our students. Many of the lessons include persons of color and women, which are often underrepresented in science. And the platforms that they use are user-friendly, and students and teachers quickly pick up the thing. It's really organized, it's really easy to use. And one of the best features is that the staff is super responsive to anything that we need, really helpful if we need troubleshooting. The lessons build upon each other. They allow students to review and revise to move towards proficiency, which is one of the things that NGSS builds to do. It provides grade appropriate connection to the Common Core state standards in mathematics and both English language arts. Almost every single lesson or segment that it does gives some type of connection to math and ELA, which is really important. The teacher additions and suggestions are really detailed. They're easy to follow. They'd be ideal for new teachers and seasoned teachers. We've had both new and teachers that have been around for a while using this and piloting it, and we found it easy for both. All the materials are easily translated into Spanish, which was a huge thing for us, and students have the ability to toggle back and forth from one language to another on any assignment, which we really liked because we don't want it, we want students to be able to learn English, and we don't want it just in Spanish, so it can go kind of back and forth. And we also had Maria look over some of the materials. She came to some of the trainings that we had, and she really thought that the materials were authentic and they were translated well, which was really helpful. And then last but not least, STEM Scopes provides guidance for teachers to support differentiated instruction because it offers information in multiple ways throughout a learning segment. There are hands-on activities, there's vocab, there's reading, there's videos, there's simulations, there's a claim evidence reasoning, a CER for sometimes 2 for every segment, and then multiple assessment strategies. It's just really, really robust, and sometimes almost too much. There's so much that you can't even use it all. But for a new teacher to get this, I mean, I can't imagine being a new teacher and coming in and having this program. It really is just, it's really amazing. And I wouldn't say that if I didn't think it was. So that's what we are presenting to you, and we hope that it gets approved.
And I can tell you that's true about Heidi. She would not say it if it weren't true. I've known her a long time. So I just want to, before
compliment,
I go to,
by the way, Heidi.
yes, I mean that as a compliment. Most of the time.
Hey.
So I really want to take this opportunity right now before we go to kind of the nuts and bolts of costs and things like that to congratulate Heidi and her team for just such a thoughtful group, and really took this whole project very seriously. It took some time. They demonstrated a ton of patience, but also appropriate urgency throughout this. So just really appreciate just a great team over there at John Knight and the science department, and in other places too. So just a couple of things here on the cost of the program. We've been talking a lot as a district lately about the declining enrollment and what that means for our long-term budget. So some of you may be scratching your head, how can the district be talking about adopting a program when that's happening? Well, we do receive categorical funds, restricted funds to do this type of stuff. It's often referred to as the restricted lottery fund to purchase things like textbooks. And so that's an account that we have sufficient dollars to be able to fund this program right now. So we have quotes from the publisher for a 6-year, a 7-year, and an 8-year adoption. You can see that, frankly, the difference between those three is somewhat negligible. In my mind, it doesn't say it on the document, but I would recommend at this point an 8-year adoption. In a worst case scenario, that we want to walk away at year 6, what we would be eating there is not it's not a huge loss at that point. It's $6,000. I'm not saying that that's nothing, but it also, I think, gives Heidi and her team and the whole team at JKMS that we're committed to this program and really making it work, because they're going to invest a lot of time. Even though the program has a lot of just good stuff built in and they've done a lot of learning already, they're going to invest a lot of time here in the next year or two really digging into this program and learning it. So I think an 8-year adoption would sort of show a faith that we like this program and we're committed to it.
Okay, is that the end of the presentation? All right.
Yes,
great.
it is.
All right, so questions from board members?
Yeah, I have one. So I was happy to see that you touched on differential learning, and it's something that I've really talked to Brian a lot about ever since I've been on the board, is meeting the needs of all students, our high students, our low students, and everyone in between. And so do you feel like this program makes, and I know in the secondary setting that can be even harder probably to meet, because you don't have as much time to pair off into groups. But as a board member, as a parent, I feel like it's really vital for us to learn how to do this in educating our kids. So do you feel like that this program makes it easier for you to be able to do this, to push the high kids and make sure that, someone who's not at the top are still getting what they need, and that everyone's being pushed to the best of their abilities?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I absolutely do. I mean, I feel as an educator, I'm on like year 8 or 9 now, I can't remember, but differentiating is probably the hardest thing as an educator for me, just because, like what we say, like you have 35 students, sometimes 32 students in a room, and they're all at different levels, and how can you meet every single one of their needs? And so I think that's an ongoing process, but I really do think that STEMscopes does a really, really good job at it. It has 3 different leveled readings, which is great because, there's a top level, there's like the average level, and then there's the lower level readings. And then for every single segment, they call a scope. There is, I'm not even kidding, there's 18 to 20 different activities that you can do, and some are extra activities, like for high kids can learn about what kind of a scientist does this thing, and then for lower kids it will have like a practice vocabulary thing for them, just to kind of even just to get the words. And I'm a visual learner. It has, PowerPoint presentation for everything. It has multiple videos, and then those online simulators. So I really think we hit every single style of learning throughout a segment. So I feel really comfortable with this.
And is it hard as a teacher to be able to utilize all that at once, do you think?
At first, I honestly thought so. Like when we were going through it and picking things, we kind of steered away from the ones that were really web-based and had like all this stuff. But then when we really dug into STEMscopes, no, it's actually the format that they do it is so easy, and everything is so repetitive, but then so robust, like inside of it, and everything builds upon each other, and you always go back to the core idea like over and over again. And as a science teacher, that's so important. And I think that that's kind of like, we've been making our own curriculum now for I don't know, 5 years. And I feel like that's kind of what we were missing, is going back to those ideas and having students revise that stuff and really learn it. And so I really truly feel like it's the best program that I've ever seen. And we looked at a lot of curriculum.
Okay, I just have one more question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, of course, no, please.
The last question is, and do you feel like all of your colleagues are on board with this? Because there have been times that we've adopted things before, and then, you know, a year into it or 2 years, I start to hear complaints about it. And if we're going to go for an 8-year adoption, we need to make sure that everyone is happy, and it can meet the needs of our teachers and our students.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I've, been around here for a while in Dixon, and I've known that, some teachers want this, some teachers want this, and then you get this and no one's even using the curriculum, right? Like we bought curriculum using it. So yes, so we have 4 people in our team right now, and every single one of us feels exactly the way that I do. And we actually just met about it yesterday again. We're kind of lockstep with each other. We do a lot of the same things. We have common assessments. We work together really well. And so every single person is on board with this. And I know that there's some that are here at the board meeting right now, would be happy to tell you, but yeah, we're all on board.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yes, of course.
Great, thank you. Any other board questions?
I'll just say that I looked at the materials that were available for viewing, and looks great. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, I mean, looks good to me, but I need to ask a teacher. So yeah,
It's a lot, yeah. But once you get going in it, I mean, students, honestly, like I teach 6th grade this year, right? These are 6th graders that have never been to middle school before, like, and they're doing, online learning. And this is just like so crazy for them. And they get on there and they know how to do it. And I mean, they do, like it's so easy to use and has so many different cool things.
My question was, is the increased cost in the different adoption amounts just like book replacement or what exactly?
I think it's for the license, because
Yeah.
we went all digital, right?
Yeah, so we are actually, welcome to the 21st century, Dixon Unified. So this is our first adoption where we are fully embracing a digital adoption that we're one-to-one. We're not purchasing all the consumables that we typically do, which really actually is where a lot of the cost is for these types of adoptions. We do want to make those things available. If teachers do want hard copies, they can print directly from the digital copies, and if we need to get some copies of some masters for them to be able to do that, that's absolutely something we can do. STEMscopes is actually gifting us what they call their STEMscopespedias. I know I'm mispronouncing that, Heidi. But
STEMscopedia.
Yeah, the actual textbook is coming gratis with this. And mid adoption, if we need to replace a few of those, we can use the same pot of money that we're using to do this to do that. And honestly, I'm looking at the cost here, and I need to dig in just a touch here on why it's a $4,000 increase from 7-year to 8-year, and only a $2,000 from 6-year to 7-year. So before we formalize that, I'm sure we could work that out with them.
Yeah, and I just want to say also that, I mean, like I said before, STEMscopes is like an awesome company to work with. They're really, really friendly. And so they gave us, like when we did the pilot, they gave us basically everything, all the stuff to see the kits. And the kits are great. And, we get to keep them, which is awesome because they have a lot of the like main stuff. And then we'll just have to replace the consumables, which is like, what science teacher needs. We need to go get sand or sugar or salt. And those are things that we're used to getting anyway, that will have to just be in our school budget, which we're comfortable doing. And then as far as the books go, as long as we have the full PDF and we're able to print everything, because sometimes, we do like to write it out, especially doing labs. We don't want computers around if we're doing a chemistry lab. But as long as we have full access to printing those out, I really don't see a problem with it.
And then just to touch on the cost again, when I showed the cost of Mr. Dolan for an 8-year adoption, I think he was pleasantly surprised that we weren't talking a 6-digit figure for that touching all 3 grades, right? So this is something that we knew was coming down as a cost, and frankly, this is something we totally have in our budget.
I think it's worth it. I really do. So.
Great. Any other board questions before I move to public comment?
Just to comment, the State Board of Education adopts curriculum frameworks in science every 8 years. So it makes sense to have an 8-year adoption process in our district.
Great. Thank you, Lloyd. Okay, I'm gonna open for public comment. And Nick, can you stop screen sharing? Thank you. And is there anybody in the public that would like to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion on adoption of STEMscopes Middle School Science Textbook.
So move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Notice one, we didn't clarify how long in the motion, did we?
Go ahead, Lloyd. Do you wanna-
On an 8-year adoption cycle, 8 years.
Great. So we have a motion. Do we have a second for an 8-year adoption of the STEMscopes Middle School Science?
I second.
Great. Jewel seconds. Okay. DJ?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
And I as well. And Lucas?
Aye.
Excellent. That motion passes. We have 3 items left, and I'm going to remind everyone of my board goal to adjourn by 10 p.m. So with that in mind, Mr. Germonti, you have one more item.
Yes, okay. So as I did last meeting, I brought the 3 elementary site plans to you. Tonight, I bring our two secondary sites that require them. That's John Knight Middle School and Main Prairie High School. Just as a reminder to the board and to the community, it's atypical for us to bring the SIPSs at this time, but typically we try to bring those during LCAP development, but because of last spring and how challenging things were in the waiving of the LCAP, these plans were a little bit delayed. We will bring these to you in the spring around LCAP time next year, but this is for this year's plans. So ask for your approval of the JKMS and MPHS SIPSs.
All right. Board comments, questions? All right. Seeing none, public comments or questions? All right. Also seeing none, I will entertain a motion for approval of the SIPSs for the John Knight Middle School, Main Prairie, and Main Prairie High School. Yes. Okay. Is there a motion?
So move.
Lloyd moves. Melissa seconds. DJ?
Aye.
Lloyd?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
And I as well. And Lucas?
Aye.
Excellent. All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for all your presentations. All right, moving on to Mr. Dolan. You have
Yes.
you have one, and Mr. Monticello has one. So if you'll do
And,
yours.
mine will be brief tonight. Just want to establish a couple, repeat a couple facts. You know, we are in the stay-at-home order that lasts for 3 weeks. If we are above that 15% ICU threshold for the region, then we get out of the stay-at-home order. If we are not, then the stay-at-home order continues for another week. So that is the way out, is to get above that 15% threshold. Solano County has currently, as of today, has a 20% positivity rate in tests, which is exceedingly high. And good old Dixon, California, has the highest incident rate in the county by a substantial amount. So whether you want to talk about it on the greater region, or whether you want to talk about it just right here at home, and however you feel about it, the fact is we are in a really dangerous period of time with regards to this virus. And we are just going to continue to encourage people, wear your masks, keep the distance, do the right things, please. They're critical to getting school reopened. I want to make sure I say loud and clear, and I'll probably say it twice. We remain, the school board and district administration, we remain absolutely committed to returning our students to in-person instruction as soon as that is possible. absolutely committed to bringing kids back. So we don't want anyone to move forward with any kind of idea that we're not interested or we're lackadaisical about getting kids back. Again, 2 weeks in the red tier allows you to reopen, and we're a long way from that point, unfortunately. But again, hopefully we can all do the right things. Reported to you previously, really have kind of 3 elements to our return. The first is that we would be reopened within 2 weeks of the eligibility date. You turn red and then the 2 weeks later. So we would not have weeks and weeks and weeks of delay. We would get our kids back in school 2 weeks after that date. We have identified that we would return groups of grade levels or programs on a weekly basis. So week 1 would have 3 or 4 grade levels or programs. Week 2, the very next week, would have more. And so really over either a 3 or 4 week period, we would be getting all students back into in-person instruction. And then obviously tied to that is at one point in time, we said we would start at TKK and work our way up. And what we would do under current planning is have some elementary, some middle, some high. And so we would be reopening across the district, not just at one particular level or school site. Those remain our kind of the principles of our reopening planning. And as I said earlier, we took a little bit of a detour from that work, especially with DTA over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, as we've been talking about this restructuring of the secondary instructional schedule. Nevertheless, we continue to be busy with regards to reopening planning. Continuing negotiations, one critical part of that, and we have been meeting twice a week with DTA. We meet once a week with SEIU. So we are actively engaged with our partners and working really collaboratively together, positively together. We are continuing to work with Solano County Public Health, Solano County Office of Education, and in consultation with our 2 labor groups on refining, finalizing our documents regarding protocols and practices around exposure and positive tests and serious illness, leaves of absence, return to work, all those elements. We spent time with both groups this week, receiving feedback from them in terms of making them as employee friendly as possible. We have continued to buy things. We are at this point stocked with PPE for a 6-month period of time. We have a year's worth of cleaning materials, disinfecting materials. We have a year's worth of the MERV 13 heating, ventilation, air conditioning system filters. The MERV 13 is at a high level. Within the last week and a half, we have ordered air purifiers, HEPA filter air purifiers for every classroom and office space within the district. And we've also done an $80,000 order of plexiglass, at this point in time focused on providing barriers around teachers' desks and whatever their teacher's station may be. We delayed on ordering the plexiglass for the student desk type barriers, just because we're not 100% sure that we will need those in the end. If we were to have to remain in distance learning for the remainder of this year, but in the fall, which we all hope is not the case, and we're not advocating that. We want kids back. But if we were stuck in that and didn't then have a use to the same degree for those barriers down the line, we don't want to spend $80,000 on plexiglass for those. That would be wasted. We could order that at a later time. So we are continuing to equip ourselves with the means to try to ensure safety. We're continuing to talk about the instructional schedules and supports for students with a return to hybrid learning. And finally, we are also engaged in the planning around, this massive operational startup. We have been so limited in the comings and goings, the nature of cleaning and maintenance, the traffic in and out of schools, feeding students from a cafeteria or multipurpose room, as opposed to the way we've been doing those things. So there's just many, many layers of operational concerns that we have also been planning on. So all this work continues. We will be returning to negotiations with our labor partners right after the holidays related to this. And it is essential and critical. And we believe our partners agree with us on this, that we have this planning done well before the point where we turn red and can reopen. So we're going to continue that focus and make that progress as we have been doing. Want to say again, we remain committed to returning our kids to in-person instruction as soon as is safely possible. We've got a lot of work going on to make that happen, and we're going to continue doing that.
Great, thank you. And I will entertain any board comments or questions at this time.
One, maybe it's part of negotiations. I don't know. You can say if it is, but I wasn't allowed in closed session today, so I don't know. When will specifically teachers be asked to go back as part of that long rollout? Like, will it, let's say it's a 4-week rollout. Will teachers appear as their kids appear, or will they be asked everyone just to be equitable, or everyone show up at the beginning even if your kids aren't there yet, and you'll just deliver DL from your classroom, or how? Yeah,
great question. And that is something that we would talk about at the table. We haven't gotten quite that far yet, DJ. We currently have about 60% of our staff is teaching in person. So that's a much higher percentage than is happening in most districts. So it's not as big a lift, I think, of having our folks return. The critical thing, and it's one of the elements that we have been discussing, is just around leaves of absence or other accommodations that employees may seek when we do in fact make the move back to hybrid. So that's work that Cindy has been addressing already, and we'll be continuing to work with the groups on that. But yeah, no kind of deadline or you must return at this point in time.
When you said teachers, you mean teaching DL from your classroom?
Yeah, or just more, I guess, to your question of, we have our start date, but your grade level or your program is not till the 3rd week of the 4-week rollout, or 4th week. What do we do there? We haven't talked about that.
No, I just meant, you said 60% of our teachers are teaching in person. You meant like,
yes, yeah, distance learning. Yeah, they're working from their classrooms. Yeah, sorry. Yep, working from their classrooms.
Okay, any other board questions? All right, I'm going to open up for public comment. Michelle has her hand up.
Hi, I'm just wondering if there's like an estimated date that we can expect to see a sample instructional schedule. I feel like we've kind of been waiting. I come on every meeting and hope that there's something that we're going to see. I look at other districts in the area, and they've been, showing off their sample schedules for months now. It would just be really nice to have an idea of what that looks like, so we can have input before it's too late and we don't have time, and yay, we get to go back, but here's a schedule that we're stuck with because we didn't put one out soon enough. I would hope that we would be able to see something sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle.
Brian, let's hold till the end, see if there's any more public
right,
comment.
sorry.
Yep. So is there any additional public comment on this item before I close public comment on the item? Appears that there is not. All right, go ahead.
All right, thanks for your comment, Michelle. And yes, we do feel the obligation, and if I remember correctly, you've got elementary school kiddo. You know, we're anticipating they're maintaining an AM/PM model based on current guidance and such. And so it really would be some tinkering around how much time we can have with in-person and allow cleaning time and things such as that. But it is our intent within, you know, hopefully within those first few weeks of January that we have those items dialed in and that we're able to share them with you. You are correct. Some of our things are a long time coming. Some districts are certainly much further ahead of us in terms of things. And I know in other districts, they're really stuck with negotiations and talking with their labor groups, and they're further behind. We remain in a positive place with our groups. They understand the desire of parents for information and really the pressure that creates on us to deliver. So really, you know, at this point in time, the soonest we're talking about maybe having distance learning is mid to late February, and we're afraid it may go later than that. So really by the time we get into that third, fourth week of January, we want to have that information in front of parents.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, this is listed for information, discussion, action, but we don't need the action on this evening.
No, we don't. No.
Perfect. Then I'm going to move on to our last item. Thank you for your presentation. I'm going to move on to our last item, Mr. Monticello, the contract for COVE rate, network, and wireless upgrade.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Dolan. I will fit my presentation into 22 minutes so that we're out of here by 10. First, there's a bit of a misspelling. The COV isn't in there. This is an E-rate project. So E-rate came from the Telecommunications Act of 1996. We all pay for it. If you have a cell phone or a landline or internet, a tax on that goes to the federal government. When we started in 1996, $2 billion is in that pot that gets used by schools and libraries to pay for phone line, internet, and wide area networks. Today it's up to 3.9 billion. It no longer pays for phone lines. There are two portions to E-rate. Category 1 pays for our wide area network and our internet access, and category 2 pays for any upgrade you do inside your network. So typically each year we apply for E-rate based on our free and reduced lunch numbers. We get a 80% discount on the items that we purchase. So we get 80% discount on our wide area network, which is provided by WAVE, that ties all our schools together and takes our signals down to the County Office of Education. And it also pays for our internet access from Solano County Office of Education. This last year, about a year ago, we applied for E-rate to upgrade our network switches and our wireless infrastructure. So we were approved for $271,000. Our portion of that is $54,000. And if you do some quick math, that's not 80%. That's because tax can't be paid for by the federal government. So we pay our whole portion of tax. So what we are getting is an upgrade of all of our switches. So all of our switches right now, at the high school at least, run 100 megabits on all their ports and 1 gigabit back to the library, which is the head end at the high school. The new switches will be 1 gig at each port and 10 gigs back to the high school. We will also upgrade our wireless, which is a good thing since we are now 1-to-1. So instead of 35 students sharing one wireless access point at about 50 to 60 megabits. Those same students will share 300 megabits back to the MDF and then out to the internet. So what I'm asking for here is the approval of CARES dollars that we will use to pay for our portion of the E-rate project. So the federal government, all of us pitching in to make that happen, will cover about 212,000, and we pay for the other 54 to upgrade the Wi-Fi at every school site and our network switches at each and every school site. So that was about 4 minutes, sorry.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Board questions or comments on this item? No. Okay. Public questions or comments on this item? All right. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the network and wireless upgrade and the use of the CARES funds.
I'll move.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. DJ.
Aye.
Lloyd.
Aye.
Melissa.
Aye.
Jewel.
Aye.
And I as well. And Lucas.
Aye.
Excellent. All right, that motion passes, and we have reached the end of our scheduled meeting. The next item is agenda items for future meetings. Is there anything that anybody would like to hear about at a future meeting that we haven't already discussed?
I would. I just again kind of beating my drum of about our school sites and what we are doing to keep them upkept, even though we don't have students there. I think of all these houses that are going in, and the first thing I would do is go drive by school to see, what it looks like and where my kid would be going. Just like an example is the fence at Dixon High School looks about 50 years old, and that fence is not 50 years old. And so it desperately needs to be painted again. And so I would just like to have an update on what we're doing and the progress that we've made on making sure the curb appeal of our schools keep up.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Other agenda items, DJ?
We had not we, but you guys without me, had a conversation about, budget stabilization on November 5th. I would like to try to steer the conversation in a slightly more positive way. If we could have like some sort of collaborative, productive conversation about ways to increase our average daily attendance, because we talked about it's going to drop 5% in projected the next year, 2.5% for 2 years. The drop in revenues is going to cause, our $8 million budget stabilization. If we have some creative ways, programs, data that we can gather on that, or data that we can request to more positive perspective.
Great, thank you. All right, other items for future meetings? Okay, then moving on to our board announcements. DJ, do you have an announcement?
Yes, thank you. This announcement, I feel like as a person who is elected by the community, I feel the community is going to benefit from hearing this. You may already be familiar with Dixon Family Services, but they have remained open throughout 2020, serving families and individuals who have been hit hard by the pandemic and its economic consequences. They help with rent, utilities, food, applications, and navigating confusing government benefit systems, provide helpful information, resource referrals, and uplifting encouragement. And people may need this help right now. So you can find Dixon Family Services at 155 North 2nd Street. They also have a food pantry that can help anybody that may need it. And they're accepting donations in case you're interested in making a tax-deductible donation before the year ends. You can seek them out and help your local community.
Great. Melissa, do you have any announcements? Lloyd, any announcements?
As you know, on December 10th, Superintendent Bryant Dolan and his staff gave us a tour of John Knight Middle School. And I was extremely impressed with what I saw. And I'm hoping that we get some media exposure on that, because it's a beautiful plant. what, the $17 million you spent on it, holy catfish. When people see that plant, they are going to be impressed. It's going to be one of the finest middle schools in Northern California, in my opinion. And I just hope that we get exposure to that, because
We will, yeah.
I mean, it needs to, people need to see that place. It's just unbelievable.
Hey, real
Thank
quick,
you.
Brian, I know we probably can't do like a big grand opening, but we
Not yet.
can plan. However, though, once the 3-week, can we plan some kind of digital opening?
Absolutely,
Invite the
yeah.
community To,
Yeah, we have to, yeah.
We could do some sort of ribbon cutting, right? I mean, we could do some
Yeah,
sort
we,
of socially.
yeah, we
distanced-
can get John and his family over and do something on the small site and virtual. And if you remember, we talked, back before, about, a big event, a gym thing with John and his family and some of the speeches and politicians and all that kind of stuff. And then opening up the whole facility for the community to come in. Here we're talking about a Saturday, so an hour-long event, hour-long event, and then 3 hours of come and walk through the place. We really want to be able to do those things, but in the short term, we'll plan something virtual. We've got moving pieces still over there, so I'm not quite ready to get that going. And I sure would like to combine it with bringing kids back to school, but we'll do something sooner, hopefully by the end of January. Just as, yeah. And I'll take you over, Melissa. You had to miss that tour last week, but furniture is there and all that good stuff. So exciting. Teachers will, we're moving, just real quick while we're talking about it. The moving of materials from CA to JK happens next Monday and Tuesday. And the teachers who are working in person will be reporting to the new campus on Monday, January 4th. So we're really going to start calling it John Knight Middle School as of that day. So exciting stuff.
Great, thank you. Jewel, do you have any announcements, board announcements?
No, I don't.
Okay, great. And I just have one quick announcement. The Solano County is putting together a series of PSAs on wearing your mask, and I'm going to represent the Dixon Unified School District Board as a spokesperson for why we want to wear our masks. And my reason for wanting to wear my mask is to get kids back in schools. So you'll see that coming up at some point in time. The county's putting it together and we're all submitting video clips. So anyway, Lucas, do you have any announcements before we close?
I do not, no. Good
All right,
meeting.
excellent. Our coming events, December 21st through January 1st is winter break. And at this point in time, we have January 21st scheduled as our next board meeting, but we'll discuss whether or not we need to have one earlier than that.
Yes.
So so we'll be in touch on that. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Excellent, Jewel. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming this evening.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Callan.
Thank you. Bye-bye.